adopting the budget at the function level. You can see the function levels in there. We start with 11, 12, 13, 21. 11 is basically going to be your instruction, and then 12 will be your libraries. 13 is going to be your curriculum development, and 21 is instructional leadership. 23 will be the principal's office on the campuses, and then, of course, 31 right there is the counseling office on the campus. When we move further on, we have social services in 32, health services on 33, student transportation is 34, food services 35, extracurricular or football, co-curricular would be function 36, and then this office would be function 41 for general administration. And then function 51 is going to be the maintenance department and custodial department for plant maintenance and operations, and that's where utilities also falls. Moving on to the other functions, function 53 will be Mr. Wilson's office. That's going to be our computer technology department. 61 will be our community services. 71 is our debt services function, and then 81 would be facilities acquisition and construction, and then the dreaded function 91, which is our recapture function. Those are the, and then function 99, sorry. Function 99 is going to be our CAD costs, and we do have that in the budget, and we'll tell you what those are as well. To break that down even further, it breaks down into the object codes, and you can see that our 6100s and our 6100s are our payroll costs, our 6200s are our professional contracted services costs, and 6300 are supplies and materials, 6400 are other operating costs, and then 6500 is the debt service, and then 6600 will be capital outlay for land, building, and equipment over $5,000. Let me go back one. On the campus budgets, they're going to budget through function 52. They'll have 11, 12, 13, 21, 23, 31, 33, and 36, and 52 on the campuses. And then the departments would budget in the other functions, and those will come up to these. You have your special programs in GT, bilingual, ESL, CTE, state comp ed, dyslexia, and then we have district level budgets in athletics and our copiers. Technology is a district level budget, and then of course our custodians are a district level budget. And that is the budget process and a quick overview. I know there's going to be some questions about functions later on. If there are, you stop me and ask me about those. That's real quick, and Brent's going to set us up for our next PowerPoint, which is the actual numbers for this budget. Okay, so the budget development process this year, we're going to talk about the enrollment, and this is what I was talking about a while ago. You can see where we start with our fall enrollment, and then we have our year-end enrollment, and then we have our ADA. So we expect what our fall enrollment's going to be for our snapshot date in October, and that's where our enrollment sits at that point. Then, of course, the year-end enrollment, you can see that it does drop a little bit each year, and then ADA is even lower because that is the average daily attendance of that total enrollment, and we are funded on average daily attendance.
That was a question I was going to ask him.
Yes,
so I know at one time the legislature was looking at doing enrollment instead of ADA, but we are going to do ADA.
At this time, we're funded on ADA. There's no change.
No change yet. Okay.
There is the possibility in a future special session there could be changes to school funding, but right now we're operating under the same guidelines that we did last year.
Okay. Thank you.
The legislature does talk about that a lot, but they never act in that way because they know we budget for enrollment, but they know they fund us on ADA. Okay, so the campus allocations, the high school was $134 per student, middle schools were $110 per student, elementary schools were $98 per student. The high school and the middle school is a reduction. If you were to look at last year's budget book, high school was at $158 and the middle schools were at $123. The reason for this drop is the band allocation was given to the band director. So I did a analysis on last year's expenditures, what they spent on band for each middle school and what they spent in the high school, and I reduced their per pupil allocation by that amount of money and gave it over to Mr. Morales to manage his own budget this next year.
Which is similar to what we do with Coach Butler and athletics, correct?
Yes, sir.
Could you give just a little explanation so that everyone understands what those type of expenditures are that we're like looking at $134 per student? What would that cover?
The per pupil would be their discretionary materials and supplies for that campus. This includes no salaries. All the salaries are handled at the district level. So it's $134 a student, or yeah, $134 at the high school is for copy paper, pencils, paper, any discretionary travel, those kind of things for that campus.
Supplies the teachers need for their classrooms on a day-to-day basis to educate kids.
Yes, ma'am. That total budget for the campuses is $910,065 total. And the department allocations for the 23-24, that is a mistype, is $6,536,558. And the state program allocations, again, it's for 23-24, is $2,013,829. And the state program allocations fluctuate depending on their PEMS data of where those special pops lay, if they're special ed or if they're state comp ed students or ESL. That fluctuates just a little bit there. There are no new initiatives in the 23-24 budget, and our TEA recapture allocation is $10,855,800 for this particular
Million. 10 million.
Sorry. I get to talking too fast sometimes. I wish. Yes.
And to be clear, our current recapture, so the amount of money that we're going to send back, the amount of Granbury ISD tax dollars that will be sent back to the state this year is 11.2 million.
11.434.
11.434. So that's the most updated number because it increases like every week.
Yes, it's actually stayed steady since July the 10th, and that's the reason for the budget amendment later on in the board meeting, so that we can meet that.
And right now, we're estimating a slight decrease in that?
Slight decrease based on higher enrollment. Like I said, no new initiatives to recapture. $10,855,000. I think I made that mistake last year as well. I think you called me out on that too, yeah? The tax appraisal and collection allocations are $2,015,820 and $223,980 respectively, and that is an increase from last year.
I have a question before you move
Yes,
on.
ma'am.
If we know it's like 11.434 million, why are we only allocating the 10 million?
This is
Okay, this is
The
for the next,
11
Next year, based on
11.4
increased,
So-
for this year, and this
Okay.
is for next year.
thank you.
So they kind of have us in a catch-22, even though we're generating more tax dollars because appraised values are growing, we don't get to keep those monies unless we have more students. So we're anticipating more students because we have more people moving into Granbury, and so with more students, they'll let us have more money, a little bit more, like about $6,160 per student. Give me the exact number.
6160.
6160. That's
6160.
close.
Now, that projection is based on my PEMS data, and I match it up to the demographer's enrollment, and I try to make a calculation somewhere where I feel comfortable. This is about as comfortable, far away from comfortable as I can get on that number.
Well, I appreciate the fact that you're normally very conservative,
Yes, ma'am.
so that we don't get in trouble at the end of the year. I appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am. This next slide here is the compensation package that you approved at the last board meeting. It talks about the $1,850 increase for the budget for teachers, librarians, RNs, and SLP assistants, SLP bachelor positions. It also includes the GTEI increases, and then 3% across the board at the midpoint for all other positions. In addition, it also talks about bus drivers are raised to $18 an hour, bus leads to $19 an hour, and then we also brought our minimum wage up to $15 an hour because we have no pay scale below 15 now. Here's the TRS active care amounts. Checked this through HR just a little while ago. Every plan has an increase this year. This does affect the employee. It does not affect the district per se because the district only contributes $378 per employee for their health insurance. The increase here will be absorbed by the employee themselves. District does provide life insurance. The premiums stay the same, and it's $25,000 coverage. The district also does cover care flight for GIC employees and their families, and then we do have a new identity theft protection program. The general budget. This first slide is the actual revenue that are calculated. We'll go through this a little bit. It's under tab 3. It's a little hard to read here, but if you look at tab 3, it's a little bit larger. It's going to be right behind. I think it's the second sheet in tab 3. This will be the revenue that's going to be projected. When we bring it to you in August, the numbers will be moved somewhat because there will be, with this legislative special session, the second one, there is an additional 10-cent compression. So those numbers will move around. There is a hold harmless piece in there. We don't know what that looks like yet. So whatever they take away from us in local revenues here will show up in state revenues. That's the way it's supposed to work with the hold harmless when they do that additional compression. So these numbers, it will be based on this total number, but those numbers at the top will change in between the 5,700s and the 5,800s. 5,700s, of course, are our local numbers. Shows the tax dollars up there. And then it goes down through our miscellaneous with tuition and, athletic events. The 5,800s are the state revenues that we will get. Those will be the ones that grow whenever the tax revenues come down. And then the 5,900s are the federal revenues that we talked about earlier, which will be indirect costs and MAC and JRTC and those things. Under tab 3, you'll also find the operating expenses. I think it'll be the third page will be broken down by functions, and this is what we talked about functions a while ago, being function 11, function 12, those being instruction, 13, staff development, and then it goes all the way down through. You can see those. I won't read those all out to you, but it shows the adopted budget from 2023 at $83,454,000 to this year's current proposed budget of $90,597,216, which is an increase of $7.1 million to the budget from last year's adopted budget. Under tab 3, which will be the next section of that, you can also see this is broken down by the object codes where we talked about 6100s being our salaries, 6200 being our contracted services, 6300s are our supplies, going down through there, 6400s are our general or our other operating, and then our debt service and our capital outlay. You can see that net of recapture on that next to last column, that our salaries make up 84.3% of our budget. That is net of recapture.
Emmett, back to the page before that.
Yes, ma'am.
The bulk of that $7 million is going to salaries and then back to the state and recapture.
Yes, ma'am.
I just think it's important that we hang our hat on the fact that that's what's happening, that we've taken what money y'all could come up with, because the legislature took care of the taxpayers. They didn't take very good care of kids and staff. And so I appreciate what you did there.
Yes, ma'am.
Because when it looks like we're getting $7 million back, I think the message that's important is that more than half of that is going back to the state, and most of the rest of it is going directly to staff.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think it's also important to note this, this concept that 84% of our budget is payroll is very consistent across the state with other school districts. Most school districts operate a payroll 80 to 85% of their entire budget. And then, of course, you have the districts like us that are subject to recapture that pay money on top of it, so it gets expensive. But I say all that to say a lot of people want to compare school districts to a private business, and there is not a private business out there or a private business owner out there that would be able to exist if 85% of their revenue had to go toward payroll. And so school districts in general, what I'm saying, run very lean budgets, and we staff according to our kids. We want to keep small student-teacher ratios as small as possible, and we want to pay our teachers competitively because we know we're in a market where we're going to lose teachers because there are others around us that pay significantly more. So it's definitely something that we talk about a lot when we have budget discussions.
Yes, sir. So moving on, you'll see some pie charts there, and this first one is on revenue. Again, this one is going to change at the next meeting. But the majority of it was under local tax revenue is 87% with this new compression. And we'll talk about compression again here in a minute. It's going to make that big piece of the pie a little bit smaller. And then it'll make that third piece of pie, which is state revenue, which is $4.3 million, it'll make it a little larger. And that, like I said, will be subject to the hold harmless. We just don't know what that looks like just yet. But they are supposed to make us whole when they do take that additional 10% or 10 cents in compression. Now, this pie chart should not change. It should be the same. This is pie chart shows that our instructional and instructional related functions, that's going to be your 11, 12, and 13, make up, what, 50, I can't read my own thing here, 55.85% of the budget. And then it goes down through there to instructional and school leadership, which is going to be, instructional leadership, and then 23 is going to be your campus leadership. Support services are going to be all the 3,000, which are going to be counselors, your health care, and your nurse's office, and then the social services that we have. And then the administrative support is going to be the sole function 41 is $2.8 million. And then support services are the 5,000s, which are going to be your maintenance. It's going to be your custodial, and then it'll also be technology. And then ancillary services, which is 61, which is community services, a small piece there, $60,000. And then function 81 has a little bit of piece in there. We did have a campus budget, about $50,000 under 81, because they want some construction on their campus, and they use their own funds to do that. And I applaud them for that, because they decided that they wanted that more than some other things that they needed on their campus. And we will support that. And then, of course, our intergovernmental charges, that's going to be your recapture and your HCAD or your CAD expenditures. That should remain fairly the same in August. It won't change. The revenue will be the one that changes. The next slide here shows our per pupil expenditures, and it shows over with recapture, and it shows without recapture. It looks like we're going down, but I want to remind you that this 22-23 projected does have some extra costs in there that we funded out of fund balance, so it looks a little higher. I can tell you that when we adopted the budget, it was at $11,262 and $10,392, which is just slightly lower than what it is projected for this year at $11,925 and $10,496. And those are expenditures per ADA, and then the lighter blue is going to be net of recapture. So that'd be what we are spending per student net of recapture. So we're looking at about $10,496. And a little summary of that right here. Total expenditures are projected to be $90,597,216. That does include recapture under current law. That is an 8.56% increase from the 22-23 adopted total budget and a 4.96% increase in net of recapture under current law. The proposed expenditure is the $10,496 net of recapture from current law, and our Function 11 makes up 61.4% of the total budget. Function 11 is instruction, and that's where it's being focused on in the classroom. Instructional support, which would be 12 and 13 added onto there, would make up 80.5% of our budget with net of recapture under current law. So we're spending a lot of our money on the campus in the classroom. Fund balance. Okay, we'll go back to board policy. CE Local states that at minimum, the goal of the district shall be to maintain committed, assigned, and unassigned fund balances in the general operating fund equal or exceeding 20% of the total annual operating expenses. If you look under tab 6, that's where this slide is, and it's a little easier to read when you look there. You can see that our fund balance at the end of last year was $30,216,000. It's projected at the end of this year to be $21,804,000 at the end of this year, based on what we spent out of fund balance for those expenditures. And that will leave us at about 24%. So we're still above the percentage that board policy requires.
And speak specifically to those two expenditures.
Two expenditures will be the purchase of the land south of Acton Middle School for the projected new high school area, and the turf at the football field and the lights at the football field. So we'll move on to the debt service budget, which is the second budget that we are responsible for adopting at the board level. This is under tab 4, since it's easier to read there. And you can see that the total revenues that we're expected to get are $15 million, and then total expenses are $7.4 million. Now, what we'd like to remind you of is that surplus can be used to fund or drawn down, or can be used to reduce the overall debt of the district. And that's what we're going to talk about on this little summary here. We're expected to get $0 from the state for our debt service. Now, we will get some hold harmless when they do reduce the tax rates and stuff, but I don't think it's going to affect our debt service too much. But the $100,000 exemption will affect us a little bit, so we will have some hold harmless when it comes to that. The local tax revenue is projected to be 14.6 on just the tax collections, and that is at the rate of 14.5 cents. Maintaining the 14.5 cents will generate $7.6 million to add to fund balance. The projected debt service of fund balance at 8/31/24 will be $10,434,888, and that is at the 14.5 cents. Again, surplus fund balance can be used to reduce overall debt for the district. Since 2005, the district has refunded or prepaid $153,239,000, saving taxpayers $26,580,905 since 2005.
And again, that can only be used to pay current expenses in our INS for our bonds, or to prepay bonds to save that money about which you just spoke.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And that's the main thing we want to state here is that, and since 2005, we've saved taxpayers over $26 million by paying off $153 million in debt early. This is just a little chart diagram or a little graph diagram of what we just talked about. The revenues are $15 million, and then the expenditures show it at $7,451,000. You can see that this year for projected, the 12.5 does include a prepayment of somewhere around $4 million this year that we'll make in August, which will save taxpayers dollars, save taxpayer dollars again. And that is included in that number I gave you of saving $26 million. It's included in that number.
Yeah, and as you guys know, we're in the process of looking at our strategic plan tonight. There's a facilities component. We're having a long-range planning right now, so there are discussions and a proposal on the table that stewards or stakeholders in our community are reviewing. And so we're doing our best to keep our tax rate as low as possible and to pay down our debt as much as possible so that when we go to voters, we can show that we've been good stewards of our money. So as we look at the possibility of needing additional facilities, we want to be in good financial position.
Sir.
Along those lines, Dr. Glenn, I today did some research, and I may have researched it wrong, and you might verify this, but I couldn't find, we are at least 25 cents per 100 valuation below anybody I could find in the North Texas region, and we're more than 50 cents below the majority that I saw.
So our overall tax rate, when you combine M&O and INS, in last, well, I guess it would have been May of 2022 when we had the bond, we listed just about every school in our region. And we're second from the bottom. The lowest is Glen Rose. Now, Glen Rose did just pass a bond, and so there's a possibility that we may be lower than Glen Rose. I don't know how compression will affect them, but when you have a nuclear power plant and you're running 2,500 students, you're generating a lot of income, so it's easier to keep the tax rate low. So it's not uncommon for Glen Rose to have an incredibly low tax rate. So when you take them out as the outlier, yes, there is nowhere you can live in Hood County and pay less in your school tax rate than Granbury ISD. And when you compare us to the Burlesons and the Cleburns and the Godleys and just about anybody else you want to throw out there, we are incredibly low. So I know both Lipan and Toller are in the $1.26 in Toller $1.29-ish, maybe in Lipan, but somewhere in the $1.20s. And so we're sitting here at 99 cents. So this is the lowest tax rate in Hood County. I know Godley's at $1.48, 49, 50, kind of fluctuates in that 48 to 50 cent range. So again, you're paying a third more to live in Godley than you do in Granbury. So it's significant how low our taxes are in Granbury ISD. And let me say this, it's a credit to this school board for making sure that they're watching over the money, making sure that we're keeping it as low as possible for our taxpayers, so that when we go out and we ask for bonds, they know that we're trying to, we really need something when we ask for help.
The third budget we're going to talk about is going to be our child nutrition budget, our food service budget. It's going to be under tab 5. You'll be able to see this little spreadsheet. We expect revenues to be $4.4 million, and then our expenses to be $4.5 million. That is a deficit budget on the food service, but as you know, her fund balance is a little large, and she does need to pay that down some. So she did budget to do some of that in this budget. The next page, the next things are going to be slides are going to be a chart graph of the revenues at 4.4, which is slightly higher than this year's projected 4.2. And then under expenditures, we're slightly lower at 4.5 on expenditures, where this year we're at $5 million. Again, we've been trying to spend down her fund balance, so that's where that number comes from. And to do a little summary here, that says decrease, but we do expect that our revenues will increase slightly on the food service budget, and the reason for that is that we're going to move into the CEP program, and everybody will eat for free, and we expect that more kids will eat, and there will be more revenue in that program. The expenditures are projected to decrease, and the fund balance at 8/31/24 is expected to be $1,140,020 at that date. Now we'll move into our tax rates. This is going to change by August, and we'll talk about this just a little bit. And I get it all up here. There we are. It shows on here that our tax rate with the 14.5 cents, that our M&O would be 76.55 cents. With the new compression from the 88th Legislature second special session, our tax rate will be 66.92 cents with our 14.5 cents added to it, which brings the total to 81.42 cents on our tax rate based on this information. That is an additional 10.7 cents added to the maximum compressed tax rate that the 88th legislation has talked about. And we'll go over that here in just a minute when we get into conclusion. We'll read over some of the things that are going to happen there. So those two bottom numbers are going to change to 66.92, and then the total tax rate is going to end up being 81.42 cents based on this data alone. We did our projections on a 99% collection rate, which is historically pretty accurate. So we expect it all to come in at that time. So we're going to get into the budget conclusions here. We're going to talk about everything we talked about, just kind of do a wrap up, and then we're going to talk about some of the stuff from the 88th legislature, and then we'll move into some other stuff as well. General operating revenue with preliminary property values is estimated at $90,597,216, and the expenditures are the same, showing you a balanced budget. This represents a balanced budget, and it is an increase of $7.1 million for 8.56% in overall budget from the prior year adopted budget. But it's actually an increase of $3.7 million or 5% net of recapture. The general operating projected fund balance of $21,804,355 at 8/31/24. And the district continues to maintain a low administrative cost ratio. The district currently has an administrative cost ratio of 0.758, and the state standard for a district our size is 0.1250. So we're almost half of what the state ratio is on administrative costs.
In language that I understand, that means that we're spending almost half of what everybody else is spending on administrative costs.
On administrative costs, yes, ma'am.
Comparable districts our size.
Comparable
Yeah.
districts our size. That's the state standard, and we're half of that, or almost half of that. Let's see. This budget does include a recapture of $10,855,800, an increase of $3,371,431 for the prior year adopted budget. However, the current recapture amount you can see there, I said 434 earlier, sir, I apologize, $11,484,369, and that's due to there's a little bit of 22 settle up that we paid this year, and that it'll all come out in the wash, but we'll get some of that back next year again. The increase in property values for the district were 18.08% for the 23 tax year, which is the 23-24 school year. That doesn't mean that everybody's grew 18%. It means that our property values overall, new businesses, new construction, that was the increase that is added into that 18%. The comptroller projected a 4.43% increase, so we're significantly higher than that. Again, it's talking about House Bill 3 is going to compress. Well, we've already talked about that. With just House Bill 3, we'd have been at 71.55%, but we just talked a minute ago that we're going to be at 66.92%, which does include our 5 golden pennies that we get for Tier 2 revenues. And we talked about that tax rate. Here is historically where our tax rates are, and we've looked at this just a little bit, but one more slide on it. It shows that we would be proposing under this particular data a 91.05 cent tax rate, but we will be at 81.42 cents based on this data. Yes, sir. Child Nutrition will adopt a deficit budget, and their projected fund balance will be $1,140,020 at 8/31/24. The debt service budget will produce a surplus of $7.4 million, and that will make that fund balance $10,434,088 at 8/31/24. And again, we just talked about our debt service surplus can be used to reduce overall debt of the district. And we can do that at the August meeting, which we will have to do at the August meeting if that's what we decide to do. Okay, 88th legislative session. I'll try to hit the high points on this.
Hold on just a second,
Oh, yes,
before you
ma'am.
go any further.
Yes, ma'am.
You're talking about taking the debt service surplus. You're going to talk to us next month about how we would go about that? Or I take it you're going to go back to our financial advisors and find out
Yeah,
if
so-
we're going to get rid of bonds or how we're going to do that?
That's correct. And so we're actually having BOK do
Yeah.
runs for us right now on bond capacity, knowing that we're in long-range planning. And likely what he's referring to is a defeasance next month. And that's just the board allocating those monies to be used to pay down our debt.
Okay,
And
so it's not like refinancing bonds. We're talking about
No,
just
it's going to be a
paying it down.
defeasance. It's going to be a prepayment. I
Okay.
call it a defeasance, but yes.
Yeah, and so there may be an opportunity in there. I know we have some bonds that are pretty close to being called. I think the 2013 bonds can be called after 10 years, so I'm sure that probably within
They
the
would look
next
at
year,
it.
we're going to look at it. But, a lot of it depends on rates, too. Rates have been going up. It was easy to call bonds when rates were down.
Right.
So we'll just look at it and see what works best for GISD taxpayers and how we can get rid of it quickly. Last time I looked at it, and Emmett, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we were at $79 million in total debt,
That's, yes, sir.
principal.
Yes, sir.
Does that sound right? And so, anyway, anything we can pay down saves taxpayers on the interest. So when we talk about that, what was the number again of total interest saved since 2005?
200 something.
26 million?
I can give you the exact number.
26 million is what
Since
comes-
2005, we've paid down $153 million, and we've saved taxpayers $26,580,000.
Yeah, so $26 million in savings is pretty substantial in less than a 20-year period. And so, again, here's an opportunity to take more of that interest away. So think of it, a bond very similar to your home mortgage. So the faster you're paying down your principal, the less interest you have to pay.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, the 88th legislative session, special session 2. We're going to go over the Senate Bill 2 key details. Senate Bill 3 doesn't really affect these numbers, so we're just going to talk about these. This bill shaves an additional 10.7 cents off each district's maximum compressed tax rate. It increases the homestead exemption from $40,000 to $100,000. Of course, it prohibits districts and municipalities from repealing optional exemption until 2028. This includes the M&O hold harmless provisions for school districts. That's what I was talking about a while ago. We don't know what the hold harmless looks like, so we'll have to wait and see what that does. It's just going to move money from our local tax dollars into state tax dollars, and they're supposed to make us whole that way. Includes INS hold harmless for the homestead exemption. Again, if you go from $40,000 to $100,000, that will cut back on the debt service, so they have a hold harmless piece in there for that as well. And it establishes a 20% appraisal cap for non-homestead residential commercial real property. And it expands the appraisal district's board of directors, which really doesn't affect the numbers in here, but those things are coming up with the 88th legislative session. So the next thing that we want to talk about are golden pennies and copper pennies. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Glenn just a little bit here.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Whitefield. And again, this is something we touched on at our last board meeting. And so when we talked about opportunities outside of the budget, which Mr. Whitefield did a good job presenting, this budget does contain a 3% pay increase for all staff. And then we really we're intentional about grabbing our lowest paid employees and trying to bring them up to a fair living standard. So every GISD employee will be able to make at least $15 an hour. And then we took steps to make sure that we're competitive with our bus drivers, who we know do a good job, and we've been working hard for the last few years to try and get them as close to $20 an hour as possible, so that they don't leave us to go to Weatherford and Aledo and Cleburne and Burleson, where they can make more money. And so the compression leaves Granbury ISD. And again, I said this earlier, and I really meant it. Our board, for the last, we'll say 20 years, has done a great job of carefully watching the tax rate. Even in 2013, when it went up to, I believe, $1.26 after the $85 million-ish bond was passed to renovate the new high school, the board quickly brought that number back down. And now we sit at just under $1. So I say that to say when other districts compress the 17 to 18 cents that is going to be required under Senate Bill 2, our tax rate is lower right now than those districts will be after they compress 17 to 18 cents. So that's significant. So when you think of, and I'll just use Toller and Lipan because they're in our county. They're going to compress 17 to 18 cents, and you'll still pay a lower tax rate in Granbury ISD if we don't compress at all. And the reason I bring that up is because there is a mechanism that's allowed by the state where districts can go to the community and say, hey, we have been good stewards, we have lowered our tax rate, but we would like the opportunity for you not to make us compress all the way down. And again, I'm a taxpayer here too. I would love an M&O tax rate of 81.42 cents. That would be great. But I also know that we have teachers that are hurting with 14% inflation, knowing that we did a salary study a couple of years ago, and 2 years ago we were 10% behind our region, and we've continued to fall behind our region because we've placed such great emphasis on lowering our tax rate. There is an opportunity called a voter-approved tax ratification election where we can go to voters in November and we can ask them to allow us to compress, but instead of compressing at the 17 to 18 cent level, allow us to compress at a 5 to 6 cent level. And that would still take us down into the low 90s, which would be significantly lower than most districts our size and most districts in the area. Again, probably with the exception of Glen Rose. And it would generate a significant amount of money that we could use to take care of our staff. And so specifically, the 3 golden pennies, what makes that very unique is they are not subject to recapture. So if we can move our golden pennies from 5 to 8, because we're at 5 now, we're able to capture an additional $1.2 million for every golden penny. So that would be a total of $3.6 million that the state of Texas can't take back. So that's money, tax dollars in GISD that stay in GISD to help our staff. Now, the remaining 9 are subject to recapture, but we still yield nearly $500,000 per penny on that. So we're estimating, and we'll have better numbers for you when we have a workshop in mid-August, and then obviously when we adopt our budget on the 21st. But we're estimating that not the 12 cents allowable to go to voters and ask for under a voter-approved tax ratification election would generate about $8 million for the district. So that's enough money to give all of our teachers and all of our staff a 10% raise, 7% above what we're doing with the 3%. In addition, it would allow us the opportunity to add staff so we could lower student-teacher ratios, something we've heard from parents time and time again, teachers time and time again, is smaller class sizes. And as we look at the possibility of having to build a new elementary school, we've got to staff that elementary school. It's going to leave money on the table to be able to do that as well. And so when we talk about opportunities within a budget, there's an opportunity for us to continue to lead the way with a low tax rate while also going to voters, sharing our needs with being able to pay our teachers a competitive salary and have low student-teacher ratios in the classroom, and get with their support through an election, generate revenue, not just for 1 year, but this is something that grows with our tax base year after year after year. So as we grow in value, that $8 million becomes $8.5 million the next year, $9 million the next year. And so when you look at districts like Weatherford and Godley who have already done this, and you wonder, well, how can they pay so well? How can their bus drivers make $20 an hour? And they've been doing that for the last 4 or 5 years. This is how. And it's something, it's a trend we've seen. We used to call them TREs, now they're VATREs. But it's a trend that we've seen. The VATRE started in 2019, and just a handful of districts jumped on board. 2020, a few more, but that was also the COVID year. 2021, you saw that number double, and it just about tripled in 2022. And so districts with this compression are looking at an opportunity to go back to voters and say an investment in your school for the largest employer in the district that educates 8,000 students is a worthwhile investment while still maintaining a low tax rate. And so this is something we're going to talk about specifically. What we're going to look at presenting to you guys in August is dual budgets. And so you would see the very first budget that Mr. Whitefield presented with a 3% tax increase and the full compression. The second budget would be a budget contingent on the voters of Hood County saying, or not Hood County, Granbury ISD saying, you know what, we can get behind our teachers getting a raise, we can get behind a smaller student-teacher ratio in our classrooms. We will take the 5 to 6% compression rather than the full 17 or 18% compression. And so I leave it to you as a board to say, let's let our voters decide. You adopt 2 budgets, and when the voters vote in November, whichever budget they go with, that's the direction we go. And so something to consider, something that's been done by other districts, but an opportunity to really take care of our teachers, to take care of our staff.
I have a quick question about
Sure.
that. The VATRE, are we looking at with a potential bond? Would the VATRE and a potential bond be on the ballot at the same time
It
in
would.
November? Okay.
Now the one thing about the bond is, and again, I'll hold until we get We're waiting right now on values to come in, certified values from the appraisal district. They're due on the 25th. But yes, both would likely be on the ballot at the same time. The bond capacity of our district, you're looking at probably a half a cent to a cent for about 100 and, well, I don't want to say because that $100,000 homestead exemption is going to affect it.
Yes, sir.
But before the homestead exemption, we had checked it with them a few months back, and it was about $150 million for 1 penny on a bond. So regardless, if we do the TRE and we do the bond with this significant of a compression, we're still going to lower the tax rate. It's just by how much. Anything you want to add, Emmett?
So essentially, with this, if the voters were to approve this, we would still be able to lower the tax rate, but instead of giving just 3% raise, we would be able to give a total of a 10% raise to our teachers.
All staff.
All staff.
Administration 5%, all other staff 10%.
Okay, thank you.
Where will that put us in line with those districts with whom we are in competition for teachers? Will that put us about even?
It's going to put us a whole lot closer. I won't say that it'll put us even because I think every year they push up. And again, the salary study where we were 10% behind was done 2 years ago. But certainly, when you're looking at a 10% to 12% raise to leave and go to Weatherford or Cleburne or Aledo, where you're looking at a 1% to 2% raise and you're happy with where you're at and you're happy with your principal and you're living and working in the same town, 1% to 2% is not going to pull you out of Granbury. 12% will pull you out, especially in your 5 best years, which are your retirement years, because we have a defined benefit pension.
And then the last slide here is just some opportunities with those funds, and I can't explain it any better than Dr. Glenn just did. Thinking about our staff and our teachers, getting those up there to be competitive. But we could have addressed some safety and security issues and different things like that.
Well, and I think within the bond, something that we've heard over and over again is safety and security and what we can do on all of our campuses. So more than just an elementary school, what we're hearing from community members and stakeholders and parents is, how can we make all of our campuses safer? And we do a really good job of that on some campuses, and there's definitely room for improvement on others. But again, going back to the VATRE and just thinking about it from an administrative standpoint, and I'll credit, again, Emmett, Tammy, Jimmy, Brent, Wes, who stepped out, I guess. We've had a lot of conversations on what we can do to take care of our staff. And I know you as trustees have approached me, many of you on multiple occasions, saying, look at what they're paying in Cleburne, look at what they're paying in Weatherford, why aren't we paying that? And on multiple occasions, I show you our tax rate, and I say, here's our tax rate, and here's their tax rate, and you're not comparing apples to apples. And so we've really tried to be as creative as possible, and so this is nothing more than opportunity, and I think a low risk opportunity for the board, because what we're really saying is, community, make a decision, and as a board, you're approving a balanced budget, and you're approving a budget that will give our staff a raise and provide opportunities to lower student-teacher ratio in our classes and provide opportunities to fund schools as we grow. But the voters ultimately get the decision. So it's not seven people up here telling the voters what to do. It's saying, hey, GISD, you make the decision, and whichever one you go with, that's the budget that we'll roll with it. And so it's an opportunity. And we look forward to giving really, really detailed information about it to you next month.
Just one comment, Dr. Glenn, and this is really to my fellow board members. As board members, whatever bulk of us decide, it's so important for all of us to have the message and make sure that message gets out there as to what this will do, because there's so much misinformation about everything out there. It behooves us to be the spokesperson of the truth And the truth is that we can do without it and continue to pay our people less. We can do without the building and continue to put our kids in portables where the roofs have already blown off once. Or we can go out there and tell folks, this is what we can do if you approve it. We can make our teachers' pay be competitive. We can put our kids, and we know we're growing. I mean, there's no question about that. But we need to be, if you will, salesmen for what this district needs, because we have the truth. And it's not the truth as we see it, but it's the figures, and those figures don't lie to us. So I would urge all of you to consider when you go forth with whatever decision is made, that you make sure that we get that correct message out.
My last slide is a thank you to all principals, directors, and my staff in the Finance and Facilities Department, and for all their support and all their help in this budget process. And then any other questions or discussion, I'll be glad to, Dr. Glenn or I would be glad to answer.
Thank you, because
you.
that's a lot of work. And there's so many unknowns every year, but it's
This is a big one.
impossible this year. I just sat and watched. Like I said, they took care of the taxpayers, and I'm thankful for that. They did not take care of our kids, and they did not take care of our staff. And if we don't do it, who in the Sam Hill will?
Emmett, thank you and your team. Emmett doesn't do it alone. I see Kathy Butler is on the front row from his department, and I know there's a lot of good people that work back in the office with you. So
And the directors,
and the directors,
principals.
we give them credit when we do district improvement plans and things like that. But truly, your staff did a good job, and we do appreciate good conservative financial stewardship, and you bring that to the table. I know you watch the numbers closely. I know we were able to reduce some positions this year. We made some cuts because it was important for us to get that raise in there while still maintaining a balanced budget. And so thank you for your leadership.
Yes, sir.
We appreciate you.
Thank you.
The time is now, clock is 5:03. We will recess into executive session. The time is now 6 o'clock. I call this meeting of the Granbury Independent School District to order. The time is now 6 o'clock. At this time, Mr. Wimberly will give us the invocation.
Bow your heads, please. Most gracious Heavenly Father, as we gather this evening seeking your guidance and wisdom, we acknowledge the importance of our students and the significant role their parents play in their education and growth. We pray for the students who fill our classrooms that they find joy in learning, discover their passions, and develop the skills they need to navigate the world with confidence. We also lift up their parents who tirelessly nurture and support their children. Help us as a board to create an environment that acknowledges and respects the vital role parents play in their children's lives. As we deliberate and make decisions today, let us focus on what will be best serve our students and their families. We ask for your divine wisdom to guide our discussions and decisions. We pray this all in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Will you now stand and join me in the pledge? At this time, we'll move to the superintendent's report. Dr. Glenn.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to thank everybody for coming out on this warm July evening. Want to also thank all of our teachers who have been working feverishly since school has been out on summer school. And we are finally now in the last week of summer school, and we are wrapping up our summer camps, and we are grateful not only to those teachers, but we also have Amy Whiteley, who is with us tonight, and she will be giving our child nutrition report, and she ensures that kids have access to healthy meals all summer, so we're grateful to her and her team as well. Also, a reminder to everybody, as we wind down summer school, that means we are gearing up the start of school. Our teachers will report back on August 7th for convocation, and then we are back to school on August the 15th, so we're excited about that. Hopefully, if you didn't have the opportunity to be here, you will have the opportunity to go back and watch online, or maybe you were watching online. We delivered our budget report. The board will adopt the budget and the tax rate in August. Want to thank Emmett Whitefield and his team putting together a balanced budget for the 2023-2024 school year. And then finally, tonight we'll talk about strategic planning a little bit, and I know we have some presenters here that participated in strategic planning, so we are grateful to all of those individuals, and we're excited to really discuss the direction the district will be moving in the next 5 years. And so, Madam President, with that, just a reminder to the other trustees that August 14th, we do have a board workshop where the trustees will discuss not only the evaluation, but also how we will monitor the strategic plan as a board. And so that is your report for July. Any questions?
There are no questions. At this time, we'll go into the open forum. Tony Monder, who is going to speak on item 11B. Did I mispronounce a name that you don't recognize yourself?
She's here. She's in the lobby. She's with someone in a wheelchair.
Oh.
You want to skip to somebody else?
Oh, that's the only one that's speaking on the an action item. The others will come at the end of the evening.
I'm speaking on an action item.
Yeah, you're speaking on a report, and that will come at the end of the meeting.
That's fine.
Thank you.
What was the name again?
Tony, Maunder.
Hello, my name is Tony Maunder. I am a taxpayer and retired and grandmother. And we just have one question, quick question. Was wondering about what we have still outstanding, owing on the previous bonds that we've already voted on. And if you don't know, how can we find this out? Because I think for us, that information would be helpful when it comes to voting time. Does anybody have an answer?
You reported that your paper said you wanted to report on item
11B.
11B.
Yeah, so to know what, the question you're asking is how much debt does the district hold
sir.
currently?
Yes.
And we can get you that exact number. Emmett
Okay.
Whitefield is our CFO.
Okay.
And so we can get you that number to the penny if you'll contact his office in the morning.
Okay, sure will. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And for everybody else, that's also reported annually in our district audit.
All right. And then we will go into our information from closed session. Do we have any, do I have a motion with regard to personnel from the open session?
That's
For
me.
the closed session, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to thank Wes Jones, as always, our HR Director, for putting together the staff recommendations. Specifically tonight, I want to pull out two that I'd like to recognize. First is the recommendation for a new principal of Granbury High School. The recommendation tonight will be for Jamie Robinson, who is a current principal in Burney ISD. Brings a wealth of experience, 3 times nominated as HEB Principal of the Year. Comes with outstanding references and just a lot of passion and energy. And he will be moving to Granbury, and we look forward to having Jamie and his wife in our district. And then also, just to let everybody know that an old face will be returning in a new position, and that is former defensive coordinator, assistant head coach Sonny Galindo, who announced his retirement in the spring. Will actually be returning as interim head football coach, as Chad Cheesy has chosen to step down for personal reasons to pursue other opportunities. And so we're excited to have a familiar face that the kids and the parents all know and respect, leading the Pirates on the football field this year. Then you have the other recommendations before you. Again, thank you, Mr. Jones. You and your team do a great job every month on this. So it'll be our recommendation tonight that you approve as presented.
I'd like to split those up. Board, let's vote on the principal first. I'll take a motion on approving the principal.
So moved, Madam President.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second for approving. Will you give us his name again for the record? Thank you, Jamie Robinson.
Jamie Robinson.
As high school principal. Any discussion? All in favor, show of hands. Opposed, same sign. Let the record show. 0 to nothing. The second thing is the athletic director.
Nope.
No.
At football.
Sorry,
He's, yeah.
sorry, sir. Head football coach. My mistake, Dwight, my mistake. A head football coach. Do I have a motion?
Madam President, I move that we have Sonny Glendo is the new football coach for GISD.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second from Mr. Galindo to
Be the interim head
be
football
the
coach.
interim Granbury High School football coach. That make you feel better, Dwight? All in favor, show of hands. Opposed, same sign. Let the record show 7-0. And now let's take the other staff all together.
Madam President, I move that we approve the staff recommendations as discussed in closed session.
Have a motion from Mr. Moore,
Second.
second from Mr. Wimberly. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, show of hands. Let the record show that the vote is 7-0 and passes. This time we'll go into the consent agenda, which is a meeting minutes from June the 13th. Our first look at the TASB Local Policy Manual Update 121. Consider 2023-2024 salary pay schedule revisions and extra duty pay. Employee handbook. Consider adult meal prices. Consider resolution to add Hood County 4-H faculty as adjunct faculty so that those adjunct faculty members can, those kids can be excused from class when they are at 4-H activities. Budget amendments, purchase of a new phone system upgrade, approval to authorize appropriate GISD personnel to be on the First Financial Bank signature, approval of the catalog bid for athletics and athletic trainer supplies, approval of Medicare claims processing service, and approval of the on-site staff professional development. Does anyone want any of these items pulled?
I have a couple questions, I think, on the on-site staff development.
All right. Ms. Brown?
All right, how are y'all? Good. Just a really quick recap that this is actually a catalog bid for the on-site professional development. So it basically goes out for bid and we take whoever applies. So what's your questions?
Is that going to be all of them you're going to take, or just you pick one?
We go through a vetting process based upon what our teachers' needs as to which ones we consider, or we don't have to consider any of them.
So these are individuals who would like the opportunity to do business with the school, so they're trying to
Yes.
get on a vendor list, so they
Yes.
get notifications whenever we're trying to purchase something. I see Hussein is behind you. Hussein, do you want to take just an opportunity to talk about the
bid
vendor
process.
process and how it works? Because I know this is something pretty standard.
Absolutely. So we go through this process with all our bids. So you mentioned athletics and athletics equipment, supplies, Medicare. So each time we do a bid, we're required by TEA and federal government, whenever we receive grants, to follow certain criteria. We put those out for bids as attributes. So those vendors, they have to go through that process to be vetted. For example, they have to have felony convictions disclosed, if there is any. They have to, no collusion. There are a list of at least 39, exactly 39 attributes for the on-site professional development that each vendor has to go through that process. And, okay, yes. So we do that and that's what we call a catalog. And at the end of the price, you will see some price list at $0 or $1,500. What we ask the vendor is to provide a discount or a rate of MSRP pricing. So that's their threshold. They cannot go over that, but later throughout the year, if Ms. Brown wants to get a quote from them, they can quote us below that MSRP for us to purchase from them. So that's just a catalog bid and creating a list of approved vendors for the schools to purchase from throughout the year.
But has anybody checked their websites?
Yes, so they provide, so what we check references. So each vendor is required to provide 3 references, and those are school districts that they did business with, and we call those references and check if they deliver the service that we requested, if they were on time, their payment, there is no issue with their invoices, they don't say, hey, this is only $500 and they bill us for something else. So we check references, that's what's required.
And anybody can apply to be a vendor. That doesn't mean that the district has to use them, but everybody has to be afforded the opportunity to apply.
We
Yes.
cannot limit.
Yeah, we cannot limit. We use both local funds and federal funds on those purchases. Therefore, we cannot limit on an area or certain category. Any vendor that says they can do certain service, they're allowed to.
We have, after checking a few of the vendors, excuse me, a couple of them we've checked out, they are very specifically for CRT and DEI, and one of them is actually the TASB director's company, and the name of the company has changed to Blum. Is that not a conflict of interest?
That's not a criteria we evaluate companies based on. So the only conflict we have is if there is a conflict, one of you has a company and they are bidding, and that's a conflict, or if anybody in the administration, or if family member of Ms. Brown, that will be conflicts of interest. If TASB or by board or the mayor has and they're allowed to bid on it, and we will accept their bid and we will bring it to you for approval.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, numerous companies can apply to be vendors, but
Yes.
if we decide to purchase from one, that will come back to the board for approval.
I just wanted to add to what Karen's saying, because I did look at some of these vendors. For example, Campfire First Texas. If you go to their website, and I encourage everybody to go to their website and look, don't just take my word for it. They're one of the vendors on their website, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, otherwise known as DEI, which, by the way, Governor Abbott just signed SB 17 banning DEI from our public colleges and universities. So I'm wondering why we would use this at GISD. And in their own words, taken from their website, Campfire First states, we take pride in our commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion. They also state on their website that they affirm gender identities. I looked at Benchmark Education Company. They brag of an anti-bias education, social justice standards, teaching tolerance with an anti-bias framework. One of their resources for this is a project of the Southern Poverty Law Center. If you're not familiar with them, I would encourage you to research them. They use culturally responsive curriculum, scorecards for guidance, and strong emphasis on gender ability and language. They are also being accused by employees of anti-white practices and age discrimination. And then the last one, and I'm probably going to mispronounce this, Newsela Incorporated, their own words on their website, raising the bar for access and equity, Common Core standards. So my concern is that we constantly state that here at GISD, we do not participate in DEI, CRT, gender ideology, etc. So if this is true, then I'm just concerned why a conservative board would vote for these vendors. I'll not be voting for this, as I believe it's a poor reflection of the majority of the community that we serve. And I just think that our actions speak louder than our words, and these 3 in particular cause me great concern.
Would you clarify for me if I understood you right? And I might not have, but you are required by law to put everybody who presents themselves on that vendor list. However, when we get ready to use one of them, you will bring the bid back to us with that specific vendor's bid.
If it's over a threshold, so if it's
Yeah.
over $50,000, we
Yeah.
will bring it to you.
Okay.
And to respond to Ms. Graft, The criteria you listed was not part of the bid, so if we reject this, we will have to reject the whole bid and start from scratch and disclose that as a criteria, that we cannot accept vendors that list all these items on their website. So that can be a criteria for evaluation.
Yeah, I didn't know if you were aware of those things, and if not, I just wanted to make you aware of what I found so that you know, because I don't think it's a good reflection of our community. So I'm not trying to attack you. I'm trying to make you aware of what I found to try to better help you and say, to keep us out of trouble with the community. It's not a good reflection. I didn't know if you knew about these things. Just wanted to bring those to your attention.
So if you just as a point of reference, for example, like Hussein was saying, at the last board meeting, you all voted to allow Benchmark to be our phonics company. And so the Benchmark Phonics was approved by the board last time, specific to what it was that we were going to be doing, not that they were part of a professional development contract. I hope that and it's not even a contract with us yet. It's just they applied, checked off the boxes, and anybody that checks off the boxes can be considered. And like Hussein said, if we need to change the process, then that's it.
Wouldn't that be the best thing for our students to make sure that we're not bringing in CRT and DEI into the school?
So CRT and DEI, go ahead, sir.
Well, CRT, the state has said not to teach it, and I have not had any parent complaints that it's being taught in classrooms, and I have confidence that our teachers are doing what's required by the state of Texas and the district. So I have confidence in our teachers. I believe our teachers are doing the right thing. I believe they work hard for our students, and I have not received any parent complaints stating otherwise.
No, but shouldn't we then vet these people and put that in your list of things that you do not want people to respond that are going to be part of that?
I think that that's part of the bid process. Like Hussein said, if we revise our bid procedures, I think that that comes through the board as well. And through the federal government and the state government as well.
So that criteria will not allow us to use any federal funds. If we discriminate against anything that's not part of the standard policy in those 39 attributes, that will be outside of the process, and we will not be allowed to use federal funds. But what Ms. Kraft said, it's like using our grocery stores. So those are catalog bids. And if you go to Walmart or Kroger, they have all kinds of items. It doesn't mean we purchase all these, like Walmart sells alcohol. It doesn't mean when we do blankets PO, does our campus gonna go and purchase alcohol from Walmart? That's not allowed. They know they are not allowed. But if they use the card or the PO, the cashier will give it to them. But they know better not to purchase something not allowed by the school district. So we all follow the employee handbook and board policy, so we are not gonna break those rules.
I understand what you're saying, and thank you. My concern is these are some of the company's core beliefs. And so my concern is that those core beliefs trickle down. And that's the concern I have for our community. But I appreciate and understand what you're saying too.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Hussein. Thank you, Stacy.
Seen, I was glad to see that you were just following her to assist and weren't stalking her.
I'm just gonna stay here.
Ms. Townsend.
Yes, I would just like to, as I get to do every month, and I so enjoy, talk about the donations that our community has made to Granbury ISD in the last month. We have a $360 donation from the Optimist Club to stock the athletic freezers with peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And Mr. Waters donated $200 to the GHS Robotics Club student activity account. Dr. Keith Clark from Braces on the Brazos also donated $100 to the GHS Robotics Club Student Activity Fund. First National Bank donated $2,600 to Oakwoods campus to fund parent pickup tags for their vehicles for when the students are being picked up at the end of the day. And Dr. Glenn also gave $50 to the GHS Ag Mechanics Campus Activity Fund for projects. So this month alone, in the summer, with not much going on, our wonderful community has given Granbury ISD $3,310. If you see any of those individuals, please thank them very much for their support.
Any other comments or concerns?
I just have a question. Can we pull item 10, what we were just talking about, can we pull that out for a separate vote?
Yes.
Thank you.
We can. With that request, we can pull that. So we will pull the item on item L, on consider approval of site staff development, professional development. So I will take a motion on items A through K on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Score,
And I'll second that motion.
second by Ms. Townsend. Any further discussion? All in favor, show of hands. Opposed, same sign. Let the record show. Vote to 7-0. Now we will take item 10L, approval of on-site staff professional development. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Gore. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Wimberly gives me a second. Any further discussion?
I just want to point out, in education, you're going to see words like diversity and inclusion because those words have been around forever. And it's meant to serve a diverse population, as in maybe it's economic diversity, maybe it's cultural diversity. But they're not necessarily nefarious at the core. So I just want to make that clear to everybody out there. It's not necessarily a bad thing.
And also, of the 13 people or companies that were picked, there were a lot. There were 377 that were brought forth, and some of those neglected to bid because they're part of another corporation or another entity that has inroads into the budget process. So just because they don't bid doesn't mean that we can't pick other companies that were other than those 13. And they may not use any of those 13 companies during their process of selection. So, and they may pick companies that put forth a bid that actually aren't even on the list. So that's why they bring it forth to us. Whenever it's over, $15,000, we actually have to approve that, and we can look at each company and decide if there's diversity, equity, inclusion, CRT, SEL, any of those things, and try and keep that from being part of the subject matter for this.
It's 50.
50,000.
Any further discussion? So just for clarity, for those that choose to vote for this motion, doesn't mean that they're choosing to vote to support CRT or diversity. It means that we are, as a group, are choosing to vote for the group of vendors that were presented to us, with the expectation that there will not be any of that in our schools.
Yeah, I think having these discussions is good for everyone to understand how this looks like in practice. You know, we talk about these 3-letter acronyms being 4-letter words, but in practice, when you look at SEL, especially for younger children, I mean, it could be something as easy as, or as simple as a book about starting a new school and how to deal with those emotions. These aren't always bad things. These are things that we would do with our own children in our own homes. So,
We have 1,200 employees in our district, and these employees, they live amongst you. They shop in the stores you shop in. They go to the same churches you go to. They send their kids to our schools. Some are public school teachers that send their kids to private schools. Some go to charter schools. These people represent your values. And I will tell you, it is a hardship on educators when they have to watch meeting after meeting, words get thrown out that maybe they watch on news stations and accusations made in other states. It's hard on our staff to have to hear as they watch these meetings. And make no mistake about it, our staff watches these meetings and they hear these words and they hear these accusations and they take it personal. They don't take it as an attack on our school board or an attack on our superintendent. They take it as an attack on them in their own classroom. And they work hard for your kids. They work hard for this community, and they deserve respect. And we certainly understand what the governor has said about CRT. And I feel like we've been tip of the spear on many of these issues. And we're going to follow state statutes, and we are certainly going to follow local policy. But I will tell you, we have good teachers here. We have great teachers here. We have great leaders here. And they deserve our respect. And meeting after meeting, just because something is said on a local news station and someone wants to come to a podium for their own personal gain and make a comment to attack our teachers, I do take it personal because we have a great staff. And in a few weeks, 8,000 kids are going to come into our district that along with 15 to 16,000 parents, and those individuals, they're busy, they're working class. We don't hear from them a lot because they know we take care of their kids. They know we love on their kids, and they know if there's a problem, they can walk onto that campus and have a conversation with the campus leadership, and it'll be addressed quickly. And so tonight, we're asking you to approve a few vendors that just happen to apply. We may never use these vendors. And certainly, you guys can vote however you want, but I hate to see these things turn into attack on our staff because we have a good staff, and they keep up with the legislation, they keep up with statutes, and they command our respect. And I see a few of them in the front. So thank you for what you do. You don't get told that often enough. Madam President.
Any further comments or questions? All in favor, show of hands. Opposed, same sign. Let the record show that vote is 5-0. 5-2. Thank you. Not that I was discounting your votes, ladies. Okay. Moving to our discussion action items, approval of strategic plan, Dr. Glenn.
Thank you, Madam President. I will tell you that we have been working with Region 13 for what feels like months. And I think we have a PowerPoint. And so, Brent, you got it up for me? Working on it. So as he gets that up, our committee included teachers, district staff members, families, students, community members that all participated with a goal of creating a 5-year plan for the district that ultimately would benefit our students. And as Brent's pulling that up, the planning process was meant to engage stakeholders to figure out a way to really work collaboratively to shape the future and to really discover new possibilities for all of our kids. We had several meetings over the course of the last month. We had some town halls. We worked on the strategic plan. The steering committee set the direction of the plan, and then the action team came together to create a detailed plan and action steps to reach all of our goals. And then we created a district vision together. All of this work culminated in the plan that will be presented tonight. And so it started with this first strategic, it started with 2 town halls actually at AMS and GMS, and then we had a steering committee, then we had 2 action planning meetings, and then we had a consolidated strategic planning team, many of whom are in the audience tonight, and that brought about the district plan, which may or may not get up on PowerPoint. So I'm on page 4 now. There you go. So here you see we have an overview of the planning process. Our community came together, and we came up with a foundation of beliefs that we wanted to build upon. And we created a draft vision and mission statements for the district. And so leadership, we dug deeply into the data. We used both the perceptual data from our district climate surveys as well as community feedback from our town hall meetings to identify our areas of focus and strands for the plan. And then we moved to target SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, and realistic goals. And then once we set our target, our community groups then began to draft how we would reach those goals through overarching strategies. And these strategies were finalized by our action planning team. And this group created 5 years of these action steps. So if you go to the next slide for me. So we began by coming up with 2 statements of beliefs. And something that was really important to the presenter, Dr. Deb, is that it had to be 100% buy-in. Everybody in the room had to say that we will buy into these ideas. And the 2 that we came up with was a positive partnerships with family and community are important for student success, and that all students should be future ready. And so with just those 2, we began working on our plan. Flip for me. And so ultimately, the vision statement, we wanted something that was easy to understand, that expressed hope for the future, that people could know and be able to easily repeat, and that clarified the direction we wanted to go. And you see it right there in front of you, that Granbury ISD inspires excellence and empowers all students to be future ready and positive contributors in their community. And so we use that as a checklist for creating what would become the mission statement. And so the mission statement, in partnership with our students, staff, and families, and community, Granbury ISD is committed to empowering all learners to achieve academic excellence. We provide a safe and supportive learning environment based upon positive relationships, respect, and integrity, and a sense of belonging. Our innovative, relevant instruction promotes critical thinking so students can become lifelong learners who are future ready. And again, something that was easy to understand, ensures purpose for our existence as an organization, that it is engaging all staff, and that it clarifies what our vision statement was. And then finally, you have here, our 5-year strategic plan is built on the logic model framework. This is a research-based model for improvement that is recognized by the Texas Education Department and many nonprofit organizations. The logic model framework states that we do, as adults in the school system, determine the results we get for our student outcomes. And then finally, you see how we worked backwards. We took that vision statement that we worked on first, and then we moved to our environment, how our adult behaviors would eventually affect the knowledge, skills, and mindset of our kids. And we had that if-then mentality. If we want to achieve something, then we must do something new. And so with that, we created the 5-year plan that the trustees have before them that will be posted up on our website after they vote tonight. Through a lot of hard work. The end result of this plan, as it's built, envelops a lot of district data. It was a collaborative work for our staff, our community, our family, and our students. And so there are 4 key pieces to it: academics, human capital, facilities, and culture. And I believe academics is going first, correct? And so at this time, Nuvia will come up to the podium, and she was a member of the academic team, and Jana Reed is with her.
Good evening, Dr. Glenn and school board members. My name is Nuvia Velasquez. I'm one of the instructional specialists at the STEAM Academy at Membrino.
And I'm Jana Reed, and I was a member of the Academic Achievement strand.
So if you are in the audience and you were part of that team, would you raise your hand? We would like to thank you. Anybody here? There we go, one. Just for your time and dedication to our students and GISD family. So we all know that student achievement is the cornerstone of the public education system. And because of that, the committee was very purposeful in the goal and strategies that they created. Okay, so you can see here that the goal is that by 2028, 100% of Granbury ISD students will demonstrate or exceed grade level proficiency and will be equipped with individualized future-ready skills. And how are we going to do that? So let's look at our first strategy. So our first strategy says that we are going to strengthen the district-wide system in which all students engage daily with TEKS-aligned, high-quality instructional material and assessments which support learning at appropriate levels of rigor. So looking at this next slide, later this summer, we will look to create a committee to clarify and reinforce the components and connection between highly effective instruction, high-quality materials and assessment, and ensure that students are taught at a high level of rigor. We also this fall will look at implementing the benchmark phonics program that was recently approved by the school board and begin the process of training, monitoring, and evaluating its effectiveness. Okay, and we also this fall will begin the annual process of updating and evaluating the effectiveness of scope and instructional material for all content core areas. We also will look at, with the highly effective instructional committee, to update our curriculum page, which is known as the CurTech Pirate, that will house any or all updates of anything that is happening.
I'm here to speak from the high school perspective because we had two specific goals to help us with our CCMR. And one of them was to expand our use of TSI to inform our advanced placement and dual credit enrollment. This last year, we gave the TSI test to all sophomores, and I taught sophomores this year, so my kids took that class, took that test, and they took it in after STAR. And so that was a little bit late because, in truth, they start making those decisions about what classes they're going to take in January. So my recommendation, and the committee agreed, it was to move that back to a fall distribution rather than after the STAR test, because that's a little too late for our students to make good use of it. Granted, maybe they're not going to do as well on it because it's earlier in their sophomore year, but it gives us time to enroll them in College Bridge and to do some other things to intervene to help them to get to that TSI compliant. They need that in order to take the college level courses. Then the other thing that we wanted to do was to establish a committee to consider changes to our GPA program. Our GPA system, as we have it right now, is pretty involved, pretty difficult, and we want to encourage our students and be more transparent and easy with our GPA system. So that would not take effect, obviously, for a number of years because you have to bring that in with a freshman class. But we wanted to start that process this fall.
Ms. Reed,
Yes,
for
ma'am.
those, and there may not be anybody in the audience that doesn't know what CCMR is.
College Career Military Ready, and that's a really important component of a high school
Absolutely.
accreditation.
And I just wanted you to reinforce that that's really what y'all are looking at, not just college bound, but
Career and military
career
ready in all the
military.
ways. We want them all to be future ready, which is part of our mission, and our vision. So future ready contributors to our community.
Thank you.
Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so based on, I think you're one.
One back one. There.
Okay, there we go. So based on the state's proclamation of textbook and instructional materials timeline, in spring 2024, committees will choose and present adoption materials for school board approval. Okay, now next slide. Okay, so strategy number 2 focuses on professional development. So we will look at to refine and commit to the district-wide system where teachers are provided job-embedded professional development and access to the time and data needed to reflect, adjust, and deliver instruction to meet the needs of all students. Okay, so later this summer, we will look to establish a PD and academic calendar committees to align to the needs of PD in our academic calendar. Also, in this fall of 2023, we will utilize the Branching Minds to drive intervention plans for students with academic gaps. And just to expand a little bit what Branching Minds is, so it is a platform that houses all the data of students. So any notes that a teacher or someone like myself making an MTSS recommendations or plans, anything that has been done on that student can be housed in that platform. So if I was at Acton and I moved to Mambrino, that platform and data will follow me. So there's no more having to dig through CUME folders or did a teacher make notes on her paper or notebook? Because if it was me, I would just make it on my 500 sticky notes. So none of that anymore. We can have it all in one location, and then that way we're able to track what was successful and not successful with that student. Okay, and then also in fall of 2023, we will utilize the observation feedback protocol to provide job-embedded PD or professional development for teachers. Okay, and this spring, we will present the academic calendar with the line professional development and assessments to the board for approval. We will also, in the spring, extend the observation feedback protocol to all instructional leaders. That would be principals, AP, instructional coaches. And if you're not familiar with the observation feedback, what it is it's a coaching protocol that allows a coach to go into a classroom. It might be like a 5 to 15 minute observation that they do. And what they do is they look to pinpoint the highest leverage area of need to provide student growth. And the thing I like about this is that it allows for the person, the coach, to go in and sit down with the educator, and together they create a plan, they practice the action steps, and then there's a follow-up meeting that continues through the process. And it's really good because it's a continuous growth program for all educators at all levels. You can be a new teacher or a veteran teacher, it's still going to impact you in a good way. Okay, next slide. Okay, and so beginning in the summer of 2024, we will systematically evaluate the effectiveness of the observation feedback on instruction. We will do this every year, and then we will look to collaborate with human capital, and that's going to be presented here. Next. Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Glenn, Dr. Harrington, members of the board. My name is Maggie Walton. I'm principal at Acton Elementary. I am a product of GISD, attended school here from K-12, and then the job I find most important is I'm mom to 3 boys who attend schools at both Acton Elementary and Acton Middle School. Like Nuvia and Jana shared, I also had the privilege of serving on the Strategic Planning Committee over the last few months, specifically in the Human Capital Systems strand. A few of the people who I served alongside with, some of which are up here and some are out here, so if you'll raise your hand. Yes, and our committee was, we had a variety of people, GISD staff, families who are enrolled in the school district, and also just community members. So our committee did a lot of hard work. We know that the overwhelming factor of student success is the quality of the teacher in the classroom. Having a high quality teacher who is passionate about their job truly can make or break the experience that a student has. And so the work that we did, that was at the heart of it, knowing that it's our job to make sure that we can attract people, that people want to come to GISD to work, but then once they're here, that we can keep them here. And so a lot of the work that we did was surrounding those things. So together our committee came up with the following goal. By 2028, 100% of GISD staff will be highly effective, well supported, and valued, both personally and professionally. And with those, to reach that goal, we came up with 2 strategies. One of the strategies has to deal with primarily with recruitment. So how do we get great people here? And then the second strategy, we'll talk about how do we keep them here. So strategy 1 is establish a district-wide human capital strategy and execute aligned performance management practices. We hit the ground running. The elephant in the room is that our teachers and staff are underpaid. And so summer 2023, we're looking at, and Dr. Glenn spoke about this at the last board meeting, and I think is going to talk about it a little bit more tonight, but about the VATRE, which is the voter approval tax rate election. This would give additional funding to the district to be able to hopefully look at not just staff raises, but also look at the student to teacher ratio, because that's something that we have struggled with the last couple of years. So that's our very first thing that we're going to look at. Fall of 2023 is to create a wide Granbury ISD campaign. If you walk into any classroom in our district, which unfortunately not a lot of people get to do, but if you do, you'll see that there are incredible things happening in our school district. Our goal with the wide Granbury ISD campaign is to highlight all of the incredible things happening here, number 1, and number 2, hopefully that will change the perspective not only in our community, but it will also make people want to come work here. And so we envision videos, we envision brochures that are at the Chamber of Commerce, that are sprinkled throughout the community, really highlighting all of the incredible things that make GISD what it is and make Granbury the incredible town that it is. Next up, spring 2024 is to strengthen the partnerships that we have with local universities and colleges. We currently have an incredible partnership with Tarleton State University. Mr. Jones is over that, and it really is an incredible recruitment tool. Not only is it an incredible experience for the Tarleton students that get placed in our schools, which it is, they're with us from the very first day of school, well, really a new higher orientation, all the way through the end of the school year. They're learning in the best environment possible, but it also gives us really great employees who already know the Granbury way, so we don't have to train them. Every year, for the last 4 years we've had them at Acton, and I know it's the same for the other elementary schools as well, we've hired from them. And so coming back with us next year at Acton, we've got 2 of our interns. It's just a bonus that they already know how we do it in GISD and they already know how we do it at Acton. So we want to look at continuing that partnership, but also looking at other universities. What other kind of partnerships can we create just to help bring in high quality people? Summer 2024, conduct a benefits and compensation review. So obviously we want to become more competitive, but once we are more competitive with both our benefits and our compensation, we want to remain that way. And so conducting reviews on an annual or every couple of year basis is something we want to continue to do so that we remain competitive. Spring 2025, we're looking at hosting our own GISD job fair. A lot of big districts, premier districts do this, and we want to have one here. We want to bring people. I think if people come into our community, they'll see how incredible our town is, and so we want to host one here. Wes and his team and some of the principals do a great job about going to job fairs, but it's a goal of ours to have one here in spring of 2025. Fall of 2025, we're looking at, in House Bill 3, they established the teacher incentive allotment, which recognizes effective teachers on 3 different tiers. If we became a teacher, if we had teacher incentive allotment, it would allow us to bring in teacher-focused allotment funding that would be able to go directly back into teacher pay. And so it's not only a way to, it's a way to incentivize our really high-quality teachers who are going the extra mile. And so we're looking into that in fall of 2025. So that is the recruitment. Now we want to talk about how we keep people here. So strategy 2 is establish district-wide systems for professional growth and retention. Summer 2023, we're looking at establishing a GISD staff mentoring program. We know that part of retention is making sure that our new employees feel well supported. And a lot of our campuses have great mentoring programs, but we're looking at making this a little bit more uniform across the district. And so we're looking at pulling from a lot of the things that our principals are doing to kind of make a GISD mentoring program. Also this summer, creating GISD climate surveys. We know that our employees will feel more valued when they feel like their voices are heard. And so we want to empower them by asking for their feedback and then using their feedback to help really drive what it is that we do on GISD. And so we're looking at creating some kind of uniform surveys that we send out to all campuses, but then of course, obviously letting principals also ask for feedback that would be specific to their campus as well. Spring of 2024, onboarding process, similar to the mentoring program, we're looking at just a way to make this a little bit more uniform across the board. We want every staff member, when they come in, to have a similar experience with onboarding. And so looking at all of our campuses and how they onboard and thinking about how we can brand like the Granbury way. What are the expectations for GISD and how can we make sure that we are explaining that to all new employees so they understand the expectations from the get-go. Spring of 2025, implement a common exit and stay interview process. Our HR department does a fabulous job with exit interviews, but the truth is that a lot of times with the exit interview, it's too late. They're already leaving the district. And so thinking about how we can implement stay interviews, asking people, what is it about your job that you love? Why do you like working here? What would require you to leave or make you want to leave our school district? What environment might make it to where you're like, I think I'd rather go work somewhere else. So asking our staff those questions, what makes this your dream job? Things like that. Once again, that makes our staff feel empowered, like we care about what it is they think about their jobs. And so that is something we're looking at doing across the board. Also, in spring of 2025, establish a grow your own system. We really do believe in growing our employees just the same way that we grow our students. And so giving opportunities for our paraprofessionals who want to become teachers, giving them an avenue to do that. Teachers who might want to become administrators, giving them an avenue to do that. And so really looking at ways to help all of our GISD employees who want to continue to grow in their career. Spring of 2026 is really just to strengthen the leadership program that we already have. Mr. Jones, our HR director, does a fantastic job with LEAP, which is held every other year. It stands for Leadership Experiences for Aspiring Professionals. We know that the job of an educator and the job of an administrator is extremely hard and not getting any easier. And so looking at ways that we can try to build our bench in GISD. We love to promote from within. Honestly, if you've been a teacher in this district and you move your way up, you already know the Granbury way. And so really creating a deep bench of people who are interested in becoming administrators and giving them the tools that they need to be successful. Summer of 2026 is develop a staff recognition plan. I would consider this one of the most important parts of our entire strategy. A recent Gallup poll, this blew my mind, showed that a lack of employee recognition is the most common reason why people leave their jobs. People leave their jobs because they don't feel like they've been recognized. And so thinking about how can we be strategic about the ways that we celebrate what our teachers are doing, celebrate the things, we do a great job celebrating what our students do. How can we really be intentional about celebrating all of the incredible things that our staff does? Last but not least, summer 2027, establish a GISD staff wellness program. We know that the job of being an educator is hard. And so what things can we put in place to make sure that our staff is taking care of themselves? And this kind of goes back to our goal, which is taking care of our staff both professionally and personally. So thinking about how we can do those things. So in order to meet the challenges of the current landscape of education, which is just becoming more and more complex, ensuring that we have a strong human capital system in place is critically important to the future of GISD. So thank you so much for your time.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for letting me be here to present on facilities. As you know, we've been through this several meetings where there's been about 8 to 20 of us each time to look at all the different things going on in the facilities world of GISD. I'd like to thank our parents, community members, staff, board members, and others who've been a part of this committee as well. I know we've got several in the audience. If you'd wave at us, we'd like to say thank you, Miss Laura, Miss Nancy, Henry, and Jerry. So let's jump right into it. We have our goal for facilities is by 2028, 100% of Granbury ISD facilities will be well-maintained, secure, and prepared for future growth. So there was a lot of discussion on the various needs and wants in the districts, and by the end of this process, we felt confident that this particular goal hit the major areas that were a part of our mission statement. We want our facilities to be well-maintained. We want our facilities to be secure, and we need to be ready for the growth that is already here and that is going to continue to come. So there's two strategies that go along with that. Strategy number one, I'm going to spend most of the time on, and that is to develop a district-wide system to meet current and future facility-related needs and show transparency by communicating all needs to the community. So we clearly, in our district, we have existing facility needs at each campus, whether that be a need for renovations or for a need for expansion. We also have a need for additional facilities to alleviate some of the overcrowding that's happening in different campuses and hopefully to improve some of the logistics of our transportation department. So before I get into our action steps for this strategy, I wanted to point out that there were two things that continued to come up with our group. And one, the need to be transparent, communicate clearly with our community when it comes to needs and ongoing projects. And we all completely agreed with that, and we've made that. If you look at the detailed list of our action steps, you will see that we're taking that seriously. And number two, if we go to bond to take care of all these facility needs, we need to keep the value low so that the sticker shock does not turn everyone away. So again, we all agreed to prioritize just our current needs right now and plan for the immediate future. And as much as I'd like to plan for 10 years out, our community showed us very clearly that they were not ready to do that at the last bond election. So we want to keep that in mind. So these action steps, as we jump into them, you'll see the very first thing is that we need to develop a bond committee to look at the needs of the district and prioritize those. You also see that a bond oversight committee will be involved to ensure transparency, communication, and guidance through the next several years of projects. So before we go to that next slide, I want to talk about some of the projects that you're about to see, just break it down a little bit. Again, facilities needs, hoping to stay to what we need immediately. And number one would be a new elementary on the northeast side of town. What that will do is it'll help overcrowding at 2 to 3 of our existing elementaries, and most of our growth is headed out that direction. If you look at demographer reports, you could see that. So the new elementary. A second thing would be renovations of all of our campuses, ensuring that every campus gets touched in some way. And this is not an exhaustive list, but this is some of the things on the list. Additional space at AMS, a gymnasium at Bacchus, roadways to help traffic flow at Oakwoods and Emma Robertson, upgrades and renovations to Acton Elementary, a track facility renovation at GMS, and then renovations to the necessities at all of those individual campuses. There are several of the items that were on our list, but you'll see that in the fall of 2023, there would be meetings set up to prioritize and budget for all of the items in the plan and to ensure that we don't overlook anything. In addition to those renovations, we're also in dire need of new ACs. So we used some ESSER money this past year to buy, I believe it was 80+ air conditioners, and we would hope that since we have just shy of 300 units that are 20 years old, that we could use some of these funds to pay for new ACs in the district. And then one more thing, school-related, is an additional a focus on GHS, an addition at GHS that would house our Marine Corps JROTC, including a rifle range, classrooms, dressing facilities, storage, and then that unit could also handle some CTE classrooms and CTE shop space. Baseball and softball facilities updates, and when we get the JROTC, if we were to get them into their own facility on campus there, that would also allow us to renovate Lower Grand Hall, which is in the center of GHS, and get at least 5 classrooms back there. And the last thing that I'll go into specifics on would be transportation. So purchase an additional 30 buses to update our existing fleets and to help reduce the time that students are on the road, and add an additional bus hub on the northeast side of town, which again would also alleviate traffic issues and reduce the amount of time kids and drivers are on the road. So, Brent, if you go to that next slide, kind of went into all those. So the last 2 slides there, some of the details that have already been discussed. On the next slide, what you're going to see is at the beginning of we're beginning, there we go. We're beginning to complete some of these projects by the spring of 2025, and in full transparency, we threw this up there in the summer of 2026. We need to reevaluate campus needs and potentially call for an additional bond, knowing that the construction process takes multiple years. If we wait 5 years in our 5-year plan to look at potentially other new facilities, whether that be a high school, another elementary, addition of a middle school. If we wait too long, then we're going to be into that 10-year plan and we'll be behind the 8 ball. So I lost my place here. So again, we'll constantly be reevaluating our needs, but just want everybody to understand that that initial bond is trying to take care of GISD in the immediate, not over the next 10 years. So based on our current bond capacity, we feel confident that all of this can happen for less than a penny on the tax rate. The price tag is $165 million, but understand that with our bond capacity and the room we have, that would only be about a penny or less. If you'll go on to strategy 2, which you already have, that is the second part to our 5-year facilities plan, and that is to expand district-wide systems to ensure well-maintained and secure facilities. So going on to the action steps there, you can see develop a facilities committee, schedule walkthroughs, establish replacement schedules, and explore grant opportunities. Again, the facilities committee would include security, maintenance, administration, community members, parents, people from all over. And the idea is for them to assess current and future needs through walkthroughs and existing district data. Looking at the adequacy of our facilities, the life cycle of our replacement cycles, our technology, infrastructure and devices, the need for additional facilities, et cetera, et cetera. And they would help create those replacement schedules for equipment for every department and every campus. And then the last thing I have here is the security piece, which we all know is a big focus of the district. It's a big focus of TEA as well. And we just want to make sure we're evaluating our existing facilities and analyzing what we're currently doing to ensure that our campuses are secure and that our students are safe. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, Board. My name is Shauna McPherson. I am the Library Media Specialist at Acton Elementary. I'm very excited to be here to present to you about Granbury culture. Culture is the heart of our district, and it is, in my opinion, the best part of this whole piece. So we had an amazing team. Any of my people here? Yay! We had so much fun preparing the action steps for our future for GISD. So let's go ahead and get started. We set a goal because we want us to be one pirate nation. Our goal by 2028, 100% of Granbury ISD students, staff, families, and community will be connected, supported, respected, and value the educational experience. So we split our two strategies into two different parts. The first strategy is about family and community engagements and intentional partnerships with the community. So our first action step is this summer, 2023, is to develop a communications committee. Our communications director did an amazing job this last year, but that person cannot do it all. So we want to look at appointing one person per campus who would be on this committee with our new person, Ryan Cox. I can't wait to meet him. They will work in partnership with him to push all of the information to him. He cannot be at every single campus all the time. So we want this team to be able to push to our community what is happening at all of our schools. They also will connect with Hood County News to make sure we're getting lots of great feedback out to our community to let them know all the GISD greatness that's happening. We also want to look into unifying district branding. We want to be one pirate nation. We want to look at fonts, mascots, colors, themes. There are several schools that are different mascots, and we would like all of us to be pirates eventually, not this summer, but eventually. We would like to standardize teacher-family communication expectations. Our teachers and staff do an amazing job of communicating with our families, but we want to make that consistent across the district, and we want to make it unified from campus to campus. In spring of 2024, we would like to design a culture survey, and we need to know the current perspective of our district at all times. So this would be a yearly survey. We want to know how teachers are feeling, how students are feeling, how are they feeling about the culture and the climate at our district every year. In summer of 2024, we would like to appoint a family communication liaison. I'm really excited about this. So we have amazing parents at all of our schools and an amazing PTO or PTA. And there's always that one parent who is very involved in our school, and they are in the know always. So we want that parent to be part of the family communication liaison committee where they can push factual information out to our community. So if someone is talking about a certain school, they can be like, well, no, this is actually what's going on. I'm going to give you the facts right now. That is not what's happening. This is what's happening. And then we can clear the air and make sure that everybody is understanding what is actually going on in our district. We also want to develop a district-wide communication and newsletter template. So this committee would create that for the principals and APs to push information out to our families and communities to where it's unified across all the campuses. I know, for example, at our campus, Maggie Walton does an amazing job doing a weekly s'more to all of our families that is very detailed. And Everybody knows what's going on at AES because of that. I want that to be happening at all of our schools, and I'm sure it is, but just develop that unified template for all of the principals. The next thing, my favorite, in spring of 2025, paint Granbury purple and gold. Not literally, well, actually kind of literally, because one of the action items is to paint the bridge, the iron bridge, the railroad bridge that whenever you're crossing to the square, where everybody graffitis, we want to make that say Pirate Nation, just like Toller has Toller Rattlers. We want to be proud of that. And so I think the ball is already rolling in that direction. We've spoken with the chamber and talked about doing that. But how cool would that be to be so proud of our Pirate Nation? Our chamber does a great job of promoting tourists to Granbury ISD. When those tourists come to Granbury, don't we want them to know how proud we are of our Pirate Nation? Yes. So we should have flags everywhere at businesses. We should have a billboard. We really want a billboard. The billboards with the Teacher of the Years are so amazing. So proud of those Teacher of the Years. But we need a Granbury ISD billboard where we can promote all of our students, staff, academics, athletics. That way, everybody knows when they pull in that we are proud of GISD. The next is to establish a service project committee. Many of you might know several years ago, we used to do a day of service where all the kids wore red shirts. We want to bring those red shirts back, have those students connect to the community. We have over 50 plus nonprofit organizations that we can work with and connect with. We thought about one group painting the peg leg going down Pirate Drive. Like, that would be a great project for kids, right? So we want to bring that back. Have our kids give back to the community because our community gives us so much. And then the next part in summer of 2026 is to develop a campaign to build awareness of community partnerships. Who are these 50 plus nonprofit organizations? Who are our businesses that we want to connect with? The Lemonade Day this past spring proved that it was very successful. Our kids loved it, our community loved it, our businesses loved it. It brought us together, which is our goal. And the last in this strategy is to establish an academic marketing team. We do a great job of marketing our athletes in the newspaper, social media, but what about our academics? We need to showcase all the great things academically, CTE, UIL, specific departments. The billboard would work great for this. And we just really want to show GISD greatness. On to strategy 2. This one is more about universal supports for students and staff. So, focusing more on students and staff and how we can improve. This is where we took a lot of the challenges and concerns that the community, students, parents have given us. They gave us a list of all of these challenges and concerns and how can we help these students within GISD. So, first, summer 2023, create a Granbury Culture Committee. This team would consist of counselors, APs, teachers, other people that would like to be part of this committee, and they would address the concerns of bullying and mental health. Our students and community really are concerned about that. So what are some steps that we can do to address that current need right now? In summer 2023, they'll develop systems to address bullying, set procedures for schools, visual aids, create a visual aid that would be put everywhere in the bathrooms, cafeteria, classrooms. These are the steps. If you notice bullying or see bullying or you are a victim of bullying, here's what you need to do. There's a hotline that I know our district is looking into for kids to be able to call if they witness bullying on campus. But my favorite piece of this is capturing kids' hearts, which I know a lot of you already know what capturing kids' hearts is. We are implementing that currently right now. Secondary is being trained. Next year it'll be elementary, and then following the board will be training capturing kids' hearts. If you look at their website, it's Capture Hearts, Impact Culture, and See Change. And this is the answer to many of the issues we face in our district. Capturing kids' hearts is building relationships, putting students first, making sure we have their hearts before we have their minds. And if we do, we're going to have an amazing district. But this has to be done with fidelity. So Capturing Kids' Hearts actually has representatives that come into our school and make sure we're doing all the steps, doing all of the amazing things that are part of the program to implement and make sure that we are doing it with fidelity. The next part is spring 2024. Establish a GMS AMS Pirate Committee. So it is very well known that there is a divide between AMS and GMS, and we want to squash the perception that one school is better than another. Both schools are amazing. They have great teachers, great students, and anybody who goes to GMS will tell you that, and anybody who goes to AMS will tell you that. So how can we bridge that divide? How can we make both schools equal in the community's eyes? Well, one is by creating this pirate committee. For example, they could create a pirate camp. They already do that for incoming sixth graders. Why can't they connect those kids in the afternoon to get together and do the ropes course at GMS or the outdoor learning center at AMS? Those kids can intermingle. They could have a track and field day in eighth grade or dances together. Some way to bridge those two schools together because they're going to all be together at GHS anyways. So I'm really excited about that one. In spring of 2024, create a dress code policy. This comes directly from students and some staff members that say it needs to be readdressed, changed with the times a little bit maybe, and be consistent. Consistency is key. We're seeing that a lot, that students want consistency. And the next part is fall 2025, create a district processes and procedures team. So we want standard operating procedures for teachers and staff to improve our culture because consistency is key. We are one Pirate Nation. Thank you so much for hearing all of these amazing new ideas. I hope you enjoyed it. A lot of time and effort went into building this, and it was my pleasure to be part of it. So thank you so much, Board.
Dr. Glenn, it's a shame we couldn't get someone who was excited and energetic about all this. But for the hundreds, literally hundreds of people that came together in the two stages of this 5-year plan, those that were in the planning and those that are serving on the bond committee, we are so grateful that we have people that are interested enough to give those days and hours. And so for all of you that are here and participated, thank you so much. And I think most of the board members dropped in on several of the meetings, and I was in awe. I'm sure my fellow board members will agree that those folks gave a lot of time and came and diverse ideas, diverse opinions, and they were able to come together in so many ways, and for that I am thankful.
And also thank you to the students that participated. It was awesome to hear from them, for them to be a part of this process. It was great to see this and witness everyone coming together to develop this plan, and especially hearing from our own students. So thank you.
And for those of you that heard the reports tonight, that was just a brief touch. These are our books that we have been presented with and that we went through prior to tonight. And this is these are our 5-year goals for our strategic plan, and there are a lot of hard work went into it. So thanks again. Having said that, do I have a motion?
I have a question.
Sure.
Since this was such a big deal and we did just get it on this Thursday, to read through it, to listen to all these people, is there a possibility I'd like to table it for a couple of weeks to be able to really take the time to go through it and see what's in it?
I have the same concern. I'd like to take the time to spend, all the people who work so hard on this, to give it more consideration. I feel like with reading the board book and then having to read this, I haven't been able to give it to the attention that it fully deserves.
Further comments?
I agree with all that was done. I'm just saying I just didn't really have enough time from Thursday to really go through this, look at it, and evaluate it along with everything else we were doing.
Same here. I don't have a problem with anything that's in it. I would just like to spend some more time.
I guess my question is, and I guess this goes to you, Dr. Glenn, because of some of the timelines, and yes, it was a lot of reading. I spent my whole last 4 days with my nose in a book somewhere with regard to this. But what will happen if we don't act on it tonight with regard to timelines we're looking at?
I can tell you that we've already started moving forward with some of this with the intent the board would approve it since it came as a grassroots effort of students and parents and teachers. And because it was a collaborative effort, we feel like that ultimately the board will get behind it. So, for example, when Mr. Gibson presented the Facilities Committee, I can tell you the Long Range Planning Committee actually held its first meeting last week, and they're in the process of working toward their fall of '23 goals at the moment. I guess it could be scrapped by the board, but the expectation is that whenever, I know some of you have already read it, others of you haven't, whenever it is read, that it'll be ratified because it is the hard work of our community, taxpayers, students, stakeholders.
One thing I really hate about anything like this is that we ask folks to come in and give us their best efforts. And it almost seems like if we don't approve it, that their best efforts may or may not be good enough. So,
with the timeline that we were on, most of us that had time to come showed up, and we spent time with the administrators, with the teachers, with the students, with the people that were part of the process. That I feel like I'd like to make a recommendation the board approve the proposal as presented.
I'll second.
okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the strategic plan as presented. Motion by Mr. Wimberly, second by Ms. Gore.
May I make a comment on it before we vote?
Absolutely. Comments? Any comments?
The purpose of a strategic plan, a 5-year strategic plan, is to give us a path. It does not mean that there won't be changes to that strategic plan over the 5-year period. We are saying that this is our guideline. This is where we think we're going to go. But if a year down the road, let's say something happens to the economy and thinking about a particular second bond doesn't make sense, we're not going to go through with that second bond. We will adjust. Strategic plans are a framework that they grow and they change as we grow and we change. So that's just one thing I want to make sure that people understand. Just because it's written in this book does not mean we will do every single thing in this book. It does not mean we will do everything in this book exactly like it's written in this book. We will do what is best for the community at the time.
I think that is a good point. It is a living document that can be adjusted and amended at any time. And Dr. Brennan, who facilitated the training, will actually be here on the 14th to talk to the board about how you can monitor the plan, evaluate the plan, and adjust the plan as needed.
And it will be online for anyone in our community to see it.
That's correct.
And folks, if you see it online and you will see, especially in the academics, if you see something that refers to core curriculum, that does not mean Common Core curriculum. It means the basic, what for at least 70 years that I've known, core curriculum were basically reading, writing, arithmetic, science, math, science. It does not mean I've left something out, Stacy. Oh, in social studies. Thank you. So are the very basic things that we are challenged in education to teach. So if you read it and you see those comments, and there are some in that plan that refer specifically to core curriculum, that is their reference. Any other comments? Any other questions? I have a motion by Mr. Wimberly, a second by Ms. Gore. All in favor, show of hands. All opposed, same sign. Let the record show that there's a vote of 5-2 with Ms. Graff and Ms. Lowry voting no. Consider and discuss the approval of bond campaign consulting.
Thank you, Madam President. As you guys know, the district has partnered with Stantec as the architecture firm that's helping to guide long-range planning, and they would be commissioned to design a facility, should that be the ultimate recommendation of the Long-Range Planning Committee. What you have before you is a consulting services contract. This is an organized effort for us to make sure that the public receives factual information over the next few months, as well as the facilitation of our LRPC meetings. Given the misinformation that surrounded the last bond, we want to ensure timely and factual information is given to our stakeholders at all times, and we want to make sure that it's a priority as we move into the next bond. And so Stantec does offer those consulting services with one communications director and his assistant who focuses on PIRs. We really don't have the manpower to push it to the entire community as well, do the day-to-day operations of the district. So we would ask that the board consider a partnership with Stantec for consulting services should the board decide to move forward with a bond on August 21st.
Do I have a motion?
Madam President, I move that we approve the proposal for the 2023 bond campaign consulting services with Stantec as presented.
Motion by Ms. Gore. Do I have a second?
I will second that.
Second by Ms. Townsend. Is there any discussion? Having no further discussion, all in favor, show of hands. Opposed, the same sign. Let the record show 7-0. That passes. Item 11C.
Madam President,
yes.
At this time, the administration is not ready to present the revision to ESSER compensation plan. We would ask that this be postponed until the August meeting.
Okay. Under that, we will go directly to reports. Annual Child Nutrition Report. And here's the lady who's going to feed all the kids this year.
That's right. Good evening, Board and Dr. Glenn. Thank you for having me to do my annual report. I want to start off by saying my staff is amazing. I love working with them, and I love my job every day. Who doesn't love food? And they are very hardworking, so if you're in one of the cafeterias, just stop by and tell them thank you. All right, jumping right in. Of course, our mission every single day is to feed the kids a nutritious meal within our guidelines that we have to stay within. And next slide. Our staff and our budget for this past year, we had 61 employees, and we served a total of almost 1 million meals between breakfast, lunch, and adult meals. And just with these figures, keeping in mind that the last full year that we did the free and reduced meal program as a normal program was the 18-19 school year. So between that time and 2021-22, that was COVID feeding, and they were all free. So just keep in mind that data. Our October free and reduced percentage was at 54, and then it bumped up 1% in February. Then our revenues and expenses, our reimbursement was $2.6 million. And then
That actually decreased due to our reimbursement rates going down a little bit due to COVID, and then also the decrease in participation because of having the free and reduced meal program for households to complete that application. Our total revenues were $3.7 million, and then you can see on the expenses, it's $3.1 million. Then a la carte sales, we sell snacks and extra entrees at each of our campuses, and that total was $454,569, and that actually was up last year 11%. Then comparing our meals and our reimbursement between 21-22 and last year, it decreased on both sides, again, because we did the meal application last year and it was not COVID feeding for free for all students. Our breakfast went down 40%. Our lunches went down 22% and an overall 27% decrease. Then on reimbursement, it was roughly about 64 to 65% decrease. And next, Emma Robertson Early Learning Academy. We have lots of fun over there. They get to do the family style dining, and the students get to engage in learning during their lunchtime. They get to learn colors and shapes, counting, different things of that nature. The students, they learn etiquette and manners. The teacher is there teaching them different things to do, how to serve themselves, and things like that. We're going to continue to introduce new fruits and vegetables to them. And then the students, last year, we actually provided small cups for them so that they could learn to actually hold a cup and drink from a cup. So that helped them. It was a little messy at first, but we got the hang of it. So that helped them with their fine motor skills, and it actually reduced our milk waste. And then lastly, we serve kiddos a snack at the end of each day. Then our summer program, which we're still currently in, we provide healthy meals June and July. And this year, we partner with First Baptist Church for the volunteers to go through them to do a background check and ministry safe. So then that way it allowed us to just step back a little bit and do the food part of it. And we began summer feeding on June 5th and we'll end this week. And then we have 8 community sites, including the summer school sites. And students at summer school, they get a free breakfast and they get a free lunch. And children in the community are provided a free grab-and-go lunch. And we've served just over 7,000 meals since June 5th to June 30th. Then our strategic plan for next year, we're going to be rolling out our new CEP program for students to have a free breakfast and lunch each school day. Encourage our kids to eat so that they can get that free meal. And then we want to purchase the highest quality food and maintain our meal pattern guidelines. Continue to reduce our fund balance. And then keep healthy options on our menu, like our salads, our fresh fruit and vegetables. We visited a farm in Alvarado. It was amazing. It's all Texas grown produce, and we're looking at partnering with them next year. And then introducing our new high school coffee bar. We've kind of revamped it. There was a competition last year with our graphic design students, and we had them submit a drawing, and then their classmates were able to vote on which one they liked. And this was the one, and it was a senior from last year. So that's what we're going to have a banner outside the coffee bar, and it's going to be neat. I'm excited. And that's it. Any questions?
Thank you so much for going to feeding all the kids, because those of us who have worked with and any experience with high school and some at the junior high level, we know those kids are reluctant to, they consider it a stigma if they have to apply for free or reduced subsidized lunch, and so they'd rather go hungry rather than be different from their peers. And this eliminates that, because if anybody can go eat, then, and everybody can go eat, then that takes that stigma away. And I so appreciate that for our kids, because I think that's so helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for pushing the fruits and veggies. I'm passionate about nutrition, and so I think it's so important to get kids started early, so I really appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anything else?
Amy, you have a great team, and
Yes.
and I know your ladies work very, very hard, but we thank you for your leadership. And as Ms. Graff said, you were critical in bringing the fresh fruits and vegetables, Texas-grown vegetables and fruits, to our kitchens. You were critical in getting the free lunch program for all of our kids. 56% of our kids are economically disadvantaged, meaning they live below the poverty line. And for your hard work during the school year and over the summer, we appreciate you. So thank you for your leadership.
Thank you.
Discussion on local policy changes for EFB instructional materials for school libraries is defined by the Texas Education Code, Section 3102.
Good evening again. The purpose of this agenda item is to review the changes that are recommended by the Library Policy Committee that was formed in March of 2023. Leah Dawson, our Student Services Coordinator, coordinated and facilitated the committee with all district principals, teacher volunteers who would be willing to serve. Dr. Harrington and Ms. Lowry met and drew the submitted names to form the committee of 9, and represented elementary, middle school, and high school parents, 2 board members, 3 teachers, 1 librarian. And so the committee met twice for 5 hours and really discussed ways to make EFB policy a lot clearer. And so the changes that are suggested were reviewed by the committee, and they were voted in favor with a 7-0 vote. So all members were able to agree after reviewing the policy. And Leah is here, obviously, to answer any questions about the process. And I'm going to take notes as to the
Stacey, I just have one question before we get started. I know there were a lot of legislative changes. Is it related to books and libraries?
Like the Readers Act.
Is the new policy compliant with everything that was passed this last legislative session?
Yes. Any questions?
I really like the chart that y'all came up with that lays everything out. It makes it so easy to read and follow. Is that going to be available for the public at large to see?
They can see it, yes. It's an internal document for the librarians to use when they're doing their collection, but it can be public, for
Okay,
sure.
awesome. And I really appreciate everyone and the 2 board members, Dr. Harrington and Ms. Lowry, that served on the committee, all the parents and community members and teachers. I know a lot of man-hours went into this, and I'm really grateful for such a well-rounded policy for our school district to use. So thank you.
I also appreciate you presenting the finished product, but you also provided for my fellow board members who were not there in the trenches with us, the actual, how the changes were made so that they can follow the process easily, and taking the policy that we as a board approved last year and looking at how this committee came up with the changes, and I am especially appreciative of that.
Thank you.
I just have.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just have some questions.
Okay.
Just questions. So as I was going through this, if you can just help me out, are we still taking direction from the American Library Association and the Texas Library Association?
We follow TSLAC, which is the Texas School Library and Archives Commission. They set out the standards for school libraries, and they also set out the collection development plan, and that's who we follow.
And do they take direction from the ALA or TLA? Do you know?
I don't think so. I think they're their own entity.
Okay. The other question is, was this made available to the public before this meeting today so that they could see this, what we were given, or will it be made public will it be given to the public after this meeting, what we're looking at, so they can see what the new library policies are?
If it's voted on, it will be made public for sure, yes.
This is actually a first review, so yes, it can be made available easily. So
Yeah,
we're
we
not
wanna-
voting tonight. This is just,
Right.
this is a discussion
This
only.
is information only tonight. The vote will be next month.
Thank you for clarification on that. And then I had some questions. I just want to make sure I have it right, that I'm looking at it right. On page 326, they redlined, they took out, this is in regards to each item selected shall, and it says, kind of down in the middle, number 1, they took out are integral to the instructional program. Taken out was are appropriate for the reading levels and understanding of students. Taken out was are included because of their literary or artistic value and merit. And also taken out was if narrative, nonfiction, present information with the greatest degree of accuracy and clarity. It looks like they kept reflect the interests and needs of the students and faculty. And then do I have this right, that they added number 9, represent diverse viewpoints and cultures in campus collections to reflect the unique background of its students' population? Am I reading that right?
Yes, you're
Okay.
looking at the criteria for selection?
Yes.
Yes, there were a lot of those things that we felt were repetitive, and the same things just worded a little differently, and we wanted it to be very concise and clear and just easy to understand. And so some of those things that seemed repetitive, we just reworded it.
Okay, thank you for that. For the public, is there a way that you could just quickly summarize what the exact process, if this is voted on, that we would be using on each campus to vet these books? Is there a way for you to summarize
Well,
that?
you can see you have a copy of the Granbury ISD Library Services selection criteria and collection development guidelines. So this is what the librarians have to follow, and they have to make sure that they meet all of those, have 2 professional reviews on every book, is the audience and the age is correctly for the correct school and age of students. And once they have the 2 positive reviews, and then they have reviewed all of the books that they're wanting to order, then that is submitted to me. Then I have to go through each book and also read reviews and make sure that there's 2 positive reviews. Am I answering your question? Is this what you're looking for?
Yes, you are.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
thank you. And I have my last question. I
Okay.
promise, my last question. I see a lot in here where it was redlined, so it looks like the board was removed from the vetting process of the books. Can you just explain to me, why that happened?
Sure. So the main reason we talked about that was principals was also in there, and principals are so busy with running a campus and all of their students and parents and all that they have to keep up with, that we found last year when we were trying to do book orders, it was very time consuming, and a lot of principals, it just didn't have time, quite frankly, to do that. This was not a priority for their job, and shouldn't be. And so we took them out because, we've got professional librarians that are doing their job. And then I also will look at the reviews as well. And then we also discussed that the board, it's not your job to look at library reviews either. We have 9 schools, and if they order 200 books, that's 1,800 books that y'all have to look through and do reviews. And it's not really the job of the board. So most policies that we've looked at in other districts do not have that. And so we all agreed that that would be something that we could take out.
Thank you for answering my questions.
You're welcome.
Because
Mrs. Dawson, I have some questions for you.
Okay.
To go through what you said, this library materials selection criteria.
Yes.
Under alignment, can you explain to me the difference between the professional review and the informal review? And is that professional review, is that the same thing as what you state down on page 7? Review the same as professional library publications, is that the same as a professional review?
Professional reviews are when we look at publishers like Mackin, School Library Journal, Book List, Kirkus, Hornbook. Those are professional reviewers who review the books once they're published. An informal review would be, let's say we formed a committee that we read the books and we informally discussed it, or we looked at a website such as Common Sense Media or Goodreads or Amazon. Those would be informal reviews. They're not considered professional reviews.
Okay, after the, there's an asterisk after informal resource. Does that relate to anything in that first sentence or second sentence?
Where are you looking?
Okay, on
Sorry.
page 1, under alignment, where you talk about the two following resources, a professional publication review and one of the either professional review or informal resource, and there's an asterisk by it?
No.
Does that mean anything?
I think it's just see definitions for more information underneath is the asterisk.
Yeah, it's so light I couldn't see it.
Yeah.
Okay. On the, where it says elementary, why should we use caution, let me rephrase that, why should we put that in there to say use caution when considering a book review for grades 5 through 8 if we're talking about elementary? Shouldn't it just be books reviewed for kindergarten through 5?
Yes, but some of those books that are young adult, they may be for fifth grade intended. And so some of them are, if the majority or the holistic approach is looked at in the books are, let's say one reviewer will rate it from 4 to 6, and one will do 5 to 8, one will do 3 to 6, or 3 to 5, then that's something that we need to use caution on, because 5 does fall in elementary.
Okay. Under the heading of obscene content,
Yes.
lost my place there. It says title will be deselected if it contains an explicit obscene content.
Yes.
Should that not say title/book? Because can a title have explicit content? I mean, it could, but wouldn't it make more sense? Because then as it says deselected if it contains, are we talking about the title or the book?
The book.
Okay. Turn the page over here. Representation. It says offer multiple perspectives and viewpoints on societal issues so the students have an opportunity to develop under guidance skills in critical analysis and making informed judgments in their daily lives. If this is just a book they're checking out of the library, under whose guidance are they getting this critical skills analysis?
Okay, I'm sorry. Where are you looking?
Under
Oh,
representation.
Okay. Well, that would be under the guidance of the librarian who knows the collection and can look up information on that collection.
All right. I know you and I have spoken of manga comic books. If we're going to deselect 50% of the manga comic books, does it make a difference, or should we be really using taxpayer resources to get any of the comic books if 50% of them are already going to be deselected?
Well, as we discussed, all comic books are different. The manga is a type of a comic book. So we'll take the same precautions when ordering manga as we do when we're curating all of our materials. That's why it's very specific in the development guidelines of what mangas cannot and may not be purchased and which ones need to be looked at very carefully and must have 2 reviews.
All right.
As well as, if it's ordered, has to be read from front to back before it can be put on the shelf.
Yeah. Have we put together a list of unacceptable authors?
No, we know a few who have been flagged, but we don't have a list and have not done that because we haven't read every book that's out there.
We have a few we know that are definitely unacceptable.
Sure.
Under the high-interest picture books, I believe that they should also be held up to the same standards and reviews as any other books. I know it says that they're just TV things, but I believe that they should be not just determined by the librarian, but we need to have some reviews on them and see what people are saying about them.
Right. Sometimes those don't have reviews, and that's why they have to follow. That's why it's in here. If there are no 2 reviews, professional reviews on those, the criteria, what they have to do to order those books.
Okay. And under adult material, it says it should be selected for campuses serving 11th and 12th, and that's going to be the high school, and the age of an adult is 18 in the state of Texas, I think I'm right. Then how are we going to handle just making sure that the 18-year-olds get these books that are rated adult?
Well, these are adult books. This is rated by TSLAC as well, and these adult books fall under some of the chemistry books, some of the biology books, some of the books for CTE. Those are all rated adult books.
Really?
So, and so that's really more of the focus there. And so House Bill 900 just passed, and that is also going to help us because The vendors will have to rate all of the books by April 1st of 2024. And so they will have ratings on books if they're sexually explicit, and they will not be allowed into any public school libraries.
That should be helpful to you.
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You bet. Any other questions?
Yes, I have one question.
Okay.
Under the formulaic fiction series,
Yes.
you're comfortable with the idea of just reviewing one book and then being okay with the rest of the series?
Well, for elementary and middle school, we do not feel that comfortable for high school books, no. But for elementary and middle school, that usually falls under the series of like Dog Man or Magic Tree House. I'm trying to think of other series. They're not coming to me right at current. But books that have multiple books in a series, and our awesome librarian, Shauna, could probably help me out on that one real quick. So I feel comfortable with the elementary and middle school. The high school, I would definitely say no. That's how a lot of the trouble has begun.
Exactly.
in
That's why I was
this whole
really
mess, because
surprised that
they
was in
change and
there.
they grow with the age of characters, and that's one of the things that we really look at in our taglines and in our reviews are the ages of the characters. And so that's very helpful too.
Okay,
Because you can see if they grow.
I'm probably showing my age and my generation by even asking this question. But this manga, so
It depends.
how many of those do we have in the library just across the board?
I don't know how many, but typically, really, only the high school and one of our middle schools has a very few. There's not a lot of them because there are a lot that are not appropriate. And so the ones that we have, we've checked and made sure are appropriate and are okay. And the autistic kids and low-level readers really thrive to those. It's been shown that they're very good to increase literacy skills and visual literacy skills, making predictions, text features, inferencing. Lots of research has gone behind them, but they are really popular with the low learners, to be
And
honest.
For clarity purposes, can you explain what that is?
What is?
Manga,
It's a
whatever.
Japanese graphic novel, and it's read from back to front instead of front to back, and it's like anime.
It's
Little
like
bit.
it's
Yes,
comic.
it's a comic book.
Yes, and I
Yes.
personally know children who, if it wasn't for those books, would not be reading.
Right. They feel very successful because they can get through that book really quickly, and it's not like a novel that they read the first chapter and don't understand any of the characters, the plot line, and so for those low-level readers, it is a very good way to get them to read.
Any other questions of Ms. Dawson? We initially thought this would be an action item. We chose to put it as a report tonight. It will go up on the website so that because this is such a hot topic in our community.
Yes.
Will go up on the website. This for the community to see. It will be brought back to the table in August to be voted upon.
Okay.
Thank you for a great job, Ms. Dawson.
Thank you very
Mrs. Dawson,
much.
one more.
Yes.
When you put it up on there, why only 10 days? Can it stay a little longer for the community to have time to look at and review the whole process?
That was just something we voted on in our committee, as you are fully aware, that we just voted that it's the time that it takes for all of the librarians to go through all of their book reviews and make sure the books are appropriate for me to go through it, and then to spend 30 days online. It's just another month before they can even start on their PO and their purchase order
That's
and
right.
getting the book. So it just takes so much longer that we thought 10 days would be sufficient.
Thank
And
you.
it'll still be available in the Follett Destiny Granbury website as well. So it's still
Well,
available.
not the book orders.
No, but the
once
actual
book is there,
books.
yes,
Right.
absolutely. Yes. Okay, is that it?
Any other questions?
Good job, Ms. Dawson.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Financial statements.
Thank you, Madam President.
You will be able to speak at the end of the meeting.
Thank you, Madam President. Board, in front of you do have the financial statements for June 30th, 2023. This includes all transactions between September 1st of 2022 and June 30th, 2023. You can see that the revenue collected to date equals 96.61% of the budgeted amount compared to 97.48% of the 21-22 budget. The expenditures to date represent 78.28% of the budget compared to 70.49% in the 21-22 year. It's a little bit difficult to tell with percentages, but I will remind you that in transportation, which is function 34, our fuel costs are considerably higher than they have been in the past, just as I'm sure most of you notice on your own bills. And then under 51 is where our utilities are, and those are up at least 25%, and I know that y'all see those on your home as well. And that is your financials for the June 30th, 2023 month. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Are there questions from the board? Moving right along and then.
Thank you, ma'am. Board, in front of you had the cash flow and investment report for June 30th, 2023. You can see for the month of June that we raised $293,807.87 in interest across all accounts for this month, for a total this year of $2,027,029.50. Which is significantly higher than it was last year.
What did we budget this year for interest revenue?
We started off at $400,000, but you can see the amended budget on your financial statements has us at, right now, $1.5 million.
Thank you.
Now, that is on the general operating, and that's just a portion of this cash flow statement.
Okay. And last report of the evening.
Thank you, Madam President. This is the categorical spending purchases. Board policy requires us that if we use a cooperative or a approved vendor and we make a purchase between $50,000 and $100,000, we bring it to you as a report. In the month of June, we had $134,298.79 of purchases from two vendors, the first being Dell Marketing for Optiplex microcomputers in the amount of $82,908.80. and 3C Technology, LLC, from a TIPS contract for Lenovo, thank you, ThinkPad, in the amount of $51,389.99.
Mr. Whitefield, here's what we do. We approve a budget that has a budget line item for each of those. We approve vendors. Then you bring this back and say, okay, these were over our set amount. So we get to see that three different ways.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
In the past, we would have brought those purchases to you individually. The board decided that if it was made through a purchasing cooperative or a approved vendor that y'all approved a bid, that y'all would just need information on those purchases. And those are on single POs. So those POs that I mentioned to you, that's the amount of the PO we spent at that time, at one-time purchase.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Whitefield, in case I missed it, how many of each of those two line items did we buy?
I would have to defer to Mr. Wilson if he know the amount of those.
Off the top of my head, what were the amounts?
The
82,000.
Dell Marketing was $82,908.
That would have been close to 100 devices.
And then on 3C Technologies was $51,389.
That would have been close to 60 devices.
Brent, will you email Mrs. Lowry the exact amounts?
I sure will.
Thank you. Go ahead and just CC the entire board. Will you do that?
I have one more question to add to that. Can you tell us what the unit prices were too on each individual?
I would have to look at the specific POs to find out what the unit price was.
If you can just put that in the email, that's fine.
Sure.
Thank you.
And typically when we do these, we get multiple bids from different vendors to find the best price and also look at what the teachers like to use.
All right, we will go to the open forum. It's been a long day for some of you folks that are teaching summer school, so certainly feel free if you want to leave at this time, and we'll go into the last open forum speakers. And we'll start with Laura Heffelfinger. Heffelfinger? Hefflefinger.
Heffel finger.
Oh.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, okay. Thank you for the opportunity. After reading the GISD library selection criteria and collection development guidelines, I have some suggestions. Given that every library has limited space, every book should meet community standards of tradition that elevate and encourage young minds to live their best life. I see nothing in the guidelines that addresses DEI. I understand that we don't want that in this district, but I think it needs to be spelled out in the guidelines. Stonewall Award Books is listed as a source. I don't know if you're aware, but Stonewall Awards are given to books representing the LGBTQ community. The American Library Association is also listed. However, in April 2022, Emily Drabinski was elected president of the ALA. She admitted to being a Marxist lesbian. Do we want the LGBTQ lifestyle presented to our youth as a positive choice when the suicide rate of this community is higher than the general population? Anime cartoon book drawings are objectifying of women and can be erotic in nature. I see this, you did a good job on negating a lot of these selections, but this, I kind of see this as a gateway drug, get them hooked at the younger levels, and then they get hooked on something that is erotic in nature and objectifies women. I'm not comfortable having tax money paying for LGBTQ recommended books, DEI that creates division of ethnic groups, or anime, which creates an appetite for behaviors not aligned with our Granbury community history and tradition. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Monica Brown.
I'm going to have something for you. Sorry, I'm going to, you want me to mix? I don't mind fixing it. I just don't want to. This is your stuff. Can you hand one of these to every trustee and Dr. Glenn and everybody around there? And then these are, you can take one and pass it down. You don't have to keep it. Okay.
If you have something you want to distribute, leave it at the back table.
Is that the rule, to put it at the back?
No,
Like there's no
but
passing it out?
It would be less confusing, and they can
I'm
listen
not
to you as
confused.
you're
I'm good if there's
speaking.
no rule. I'm going to pass it out. You don't have to take it. This is Keller Independent School District rubric or evaluation tool that's extremely simple to be used for evaluating books. Keller, and I'm not sure about Keller, but actually Carroll ISD broke away from TASB. I want to say something to the teachers at Granbury. Do not let anybody here make you think that some of the people who've stood up against the illicit books are against you as a teacher. You have no guilt unless you're one of the ones, is this even on? Unless you're one of the ones who actually voted to put the books back. If you didn't do that, then you have nothing to be guilty of. But 100 books put back in 2 meetings with people who are sitting in this room right now, they were on the committee. So do I think all the teachers in GISD are bad? Never said that. Never attributed that to them. Don't need to blanket them all. Then we had direct lying on the school board. We had bullying on the school board. There's some serious stuff that needs to change. Loved what you guys had to say, some of you today. I think that's wonderful. Go to AMS right now. Go to the library. Click on Classically. Click on Sexuality. Click on Health and see if that lines up with Granbury history and tradition, with godly history and tradition. See if it matches with your SHAT policy. Are you supposed to be teaching sexuality through other books? Look at your accreditation policy, EHAA. Go look at it. Are you teaching the Old Testament and the New Testament and its impact on history? You think no one's complaining because they will not speak, not until their kids are out of the system. Very few will speak because of the bullying culture that we've seen right here on this board. So I actually left my notes over there. mixed up. Why would I record this meeting? Because last time when y'all voted 2 times ago for DEI, even though we said, hey, time out, this has DEI, not diversity as we know it, not equity as we know it, not inclusion as we know how it's defined, but DEI that our legislator said no to, that you guys said yes to. We said, oh, wait, go look at the policy, go look at the resource manual, click through. But you guys, except for 2 of you, voted for it. So to say you don't vote for DEI isn't true. It's just not. You did it 2 times ago. You have people who are violating the Teacher's Code of Ethics. Go look at AMS website, look at library, go check it out yourself. You have professional ethic problems, and I'm thinking of airplanes right now, but he's not the only one who got in the airplane. So it makes me wonder if they can still judge about books. And why in the world they'd buy the manga books? I agree with the lady who just spoke. Why would you do that? Why don't you get a book about Ben Franklin in there, in your high school library? The only reason why I know about AMS is because I was looking to see if Ben Franklin was there.
Thank you, Ms. Brown.
You're welcome.
Gotcha. Dr. Glenn, would you tell me how many books we've had challenged in the last 6 to 9 months?
None.
Thank you. Dave Eagle. Didn't show up. Craig Mayberry.
Hi. Greetings, school board, everyone. Last month, the school board voted 5-2 to open Pandora's box to use the CIS program. And even though it does have a lot of wonderful benefits, it does have some serious strings attached to it. CIS is the program which will bring CRT into the schools. Texas law says that critical race theory cannot be taught in public schools. But see, it doesn't make any mention about bypassing instruction and going directly to implementation. See, unlike traditional racism of white people against black people, CIS employs Marxist ideology by implementing the vehicle of diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI, which detaches and subdivides people based not only on skin color, but by ethnicity, religious belief, sex, gender identity, income, political ideologies, etc. It uses DEI to divide people into 2 classes, the oppressors and the oppressed. So who are these oppressors? Well, for one, I am. And also, every one of you on the school board are oppressors. Why? Because according to DEI, you are straight, white, cisgendered, able-bodied Christians, and you are the sole exclusive reason why those who are in a marginalized community cannot succeed. And according to DEI, oppression is the only sin to which there is no forgiveness, there's no atonement. So who are the oppressed? Everyone else. For example, let's just say that Alicia is a Puerto Rican lesbian immigrant who comes from a historically marginalized lower income group whose math scores as a whole are less than their white American counterparts. Never mind that her dad is a successful brain surgeon, but DEI ensures that Alicia's math scores will either be raised to fit in or surpass her straight white American classmates for no more reason than she experiences oppression on at least 3 levels that her classmates don't. This waters down or eliminates meritocracy or content of character in which those students who bust their hump by hard work and sweat of their brow to become the best they can be will be usurped by someone who has been given too many brownie points and bumped to the head of the line, regardless of merit. Now, lest you think that I'm exaggerating and all wet behind the ears, there has to be some kind of truth to what I'm saying because that has been made clear. Effective September 1st, SB 17, passed by the Texas legislature, bans DEI in any and all forms at all Texas state universities and colleges. It bans preferential treatment of faculty, staff, and students based on race, ethnicity, gender identity, sexual orientation, political views, and prohibits teaching of such topics in the college classroom. So if it's a bad idea at the university level, then why on God's green earth Would it be a good idea at the public school level? What would make any of y'all think that what happened in those institutions, such that it caused a law to be enacted, won't happen here?
Thank you, Mr. Mayberry.
May I have 15 seconds?
Your time is up. Thank you very much for coming. To end on a positive note, thank you, the 5 who wrote it out, who were voted to present for each of your areas. You did a great job. I'm very proud of you for doing that. And Mr. Butler, you still have a job as athletic director, and this meeting is adjourned at 10 after 8.
Donna?